Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Wednesday. If you were here, y'all know the drill. Like, share, subscribe. Get those likes up. As always, if you would like to show support to the show, you can do so by finding me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Charday. Shout out to you, Demetrius, for being here. Good to see you. All my amazing moderators and members, shout out to you. And guys, just shout out to you for being here in general. You could be anywhere, but you are here hanging out with me. So thank you so much. I appreciate you for being here. I'm really excited about today. I think this is a long overdue conversation. Now, let me just start off by saying this is not I'm trying to cook Black women. I'm trying to bash. This is not a bash Black woman show. But I do think this conversation is important because at the end of the day, if you have a group of us, a group of Black women who are very excited and very interested in actually dating and mating in the white community, and they have gone online and said all this content and made all of these observations and all these ideals about what it means to be in the white community, I think it's actually important to hear from them. I think it's important to hear from somebody from the white community. So the purpose of today's show really is just to try to get some perspective, to talk to somebody who's actually grown up in the white community. It can help set the record straight on some of these ideals that are actually being promoted from the Swirlers, from the Divesters, or just from some people who might be interested about what it may be like. And so that is what today is about. And also to clarify some things, y'all. Some of y'all don't listen. Some of y'all, Shay has never said that I am against Black women who decide to date and marry. I've never said that, and I will never say that. I am open to people at the end of the day have the right to do and date and marry whoever they want to. I don't care. That's their right. Now, what I am here to say, though, is to try to push back against narratives or ideals that are toxic and harmful to women and harmful to the Black community and just harmful to people in general. So that is what I target. And that is what I address when I look at some of whether it's divestor ideology or swirlers. It's not the idea that somebody is dating or marrying out, could care less. It's some of the different ideas being promoted about why that are wrong or toxic or just incorrect. So that is what I'm here about. I will always be a supporter of Black love. I want to see more Black love, and I want to work with more Black wives if I can find them. So guys, as you guys find them, send them my way. But in the meantime, I'm also a supporter of people doing what works for the best for them. And we live in the United States of America where things are integrated and people, know all kinds of different people. And I think it's important to also have a healthy perspective about what's going on with other people so you don't just come to these rash conclusions based upon what you see online. So I'm here to listen. Like I said, we're here to have an informative conversation. This is not about me going here bashing nobody. So I wanted to set the record straight. Also, guys, as always, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat, Cash App. The best way to ensure that your comment is read and seen is through the super chat feature and all that jazz. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on a special guest. She is a lovely friend of mine, and we're just going to have a conversation about this whole thing and hopefully get down to the nitty-gritty of what is actually going on and how really should women, especially Black women, go about, just go about when they are shopping for a mate, what they should be looking for, all that stuff. So I'm going to bring her on, and then we're going to get started. Hey.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So, again, you're brave to have this conversation with me, but this should be fine. Like I said, this is not a bash anyone session. Really, I just want to hear your perspective. Now, I'm glad you're here because I know you don't really know anything about the swirler, divester, anything. So you'll probably be able to come here with an unbiased section. But, my goal was there is a lot of talk and there's a lot of interest of women of color in general, and especially Black women wanting to date and marry into the white community. And I have found that there's been a lot of ideas and a lot of assumptions made about what it means to be in the white community, marry in the white community, have maybe a white husband or father, all these assumptions. And I'm like, I think it's actually important to hear from the women who actually have that experience. So what I want to do today is just kind of review some of the different assumptions that have been made about your community. And then you weigh on based upon your experience as whether or not that is true, or you think it's maybe false, and maybe help set some perspective about what actually is going on. And ultimately how somebody should be choosing a partner, a potential husband, the qualities they should be looking for. So that's what we're here today. Like, share, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. And I'm gonna bring up. We have to review, so bear with me.
I would just also comment like on everything you said at the beginning, like definitely not here to bash, just provide perspective and hear kind of what's going on. Cause like you said, I actually have no idea what either of them are. So it'll
Which
be
is
informative for me as well. And you'll get real-time reactions. Hopefully nothing too crazy.
also, I'm sorry. I should have probably formally introduced you. If you want to introduce yourself to the audience so they can know who you are, just anything about you.
Sure. Well, my name's Laura Walters. I am recently married within the last couple years to not actually a white man. So that'll be interesting to provide feedback on that. But yeah, I have been friends with Sade for as long as I've known my husband, actually. We met on the same day and very weird. And yeah, Sade and I have been friends for a long time and talk about this stuff all the time offline and our weekly book reading, which no book reading actually happens.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what else. I don't know that necessarily anything else is too relevant. I grew up in San Diego, California, in a small town called Poway, which was pretty insulated for the most part. There were I would describe it as like a small group of Mexicans, small group of Black people, and then a majority of white people, with, some other, Asian mix in there as well. So definitely insulated from a lot of diversity and didn't really have a good idea of that until I moved to the Bay Area when I was 23, I think. So yeah, it should be interesting. I mean, I've always played sports, so I've always been around diversity in a lot of different ways, but never really, yay, San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
California.
definitely have had my fair share of different experiences with different types of people growing up. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays into this conversation.
All right. Well, thanks again for being here. Shout out to you for being brave enough to have this conversation with me.
Yes.
People also have, San Diego is a beautiful area, and it's like when people think of California, they think of San Diego, I think, without even really knowing. Like, that's the perception that everybody has of Californians. They're on the beach all the time, surfing, sunny every single day. So you coming from that area, I think, is great.
Yes.
If that helps.
I don't surf.
But you do like going to the beach.
Yes, I do. That's true.
Okay. So let me pull up the first video. We can get into it. Okay. So I have so many tabs open, so you'll have to bear with me.
Oh, good.
A supporter of my Black.
Okay. Let's see if you can see this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, where'd you go? Sorry. I'm trying to get the best orientation here. Y'all bear with me. Technical issues. All right. So, I'll just play it. And then we can
Hey friends, let's have a discussion. Why are so many Black women no longer willing to date Black men? Now, I'm a supporter of my Black men, and after a year of being off the market, what did? I went right back to them. Stupid me, because it didn't take long for me to recognize why I stopped doing that. To begin with, I invite this nice young fella over. You know what he tells me? Why don't you come over here? Ugh. What that is that's resistance. That's playing hard to get. And I am at a point in my life where I need shit to be effortless. I need it to be easy. I don't need to be running into your walls, and I certainly don't have time to be playing nobody's game. An unhealed Black man will turn getting to him, his mind, his heart, his psyche, anything, getting to him in general, into a challenge. And like I said, I need things to be easy. So, of course, I put this on social media and somebody comments, yeah, you might need a white guy. They seem to be a little bit more submissive. Aw. Now, I know they said that in order to be like confrontational or whatever, derogatory, offensive, but all they did was prove my point. You see, I just said I am sick and tired of every single time that I go out there and I run into a black man, heaven forbid he be unhealed, he turns getting to know him into a challenge. I'm tired of the challenges. And so you telling me that white men are a little bit more submissive, I agree with that. Yes, they say yes to things. They're a little bit more unconditional loving. And think about what is the first step to submission? Acceptance. So in all likelihood, they're just going to accept that I've invited them over and figure out a way to make that happen, as opposed to thinking that it's cute or a game to give me the resistance and the stops and have to make me put in work in order to get to know them. Basically, I agree with you, honey. You're 1,000% right. I might need somebody who's a little bit more willing. I might need someone who's a little bit more accepting. I certainly need somebody who's not going to throw a challenge in my face every time I ask them to do something. And so, friends, that is just one reason why a lot of black women are no longer choosing to date black men. Y'all make it so hard and challenging to even get to know you. Have a blessed day, friends.
Okay, so that is our first take.
I feel like I needed to take notes on all the things that I could respond to. I thought that would be easy. 2 minutes. I was like, oh, 2 minutes is like, there will be.
Do I need to go back and like break it down bit by bit?
Well, okay. So my first reaction, I mean, of course, this is a TikTok video. So it's like, it's dumb, like it's stripped out of detail and stuff.
Yeah,
but
right.
You know, my first general reaction is usually people who complain about something, like it's really hard to get to know you, or it's I'm tired of you. I mean, the comment of like, well, why don't you come over here? Like, that's just so childish. It feels like such a childish response. I feel like usually those people who are really nitpicky about that and verbal enough to say it, they actually are hard to get to know. And they have the walls up. And like, they're really not accepting of things in themselves or are unhealed. So it's like, usually when someone says stuff like that, I can always tell, like in my own relationship, if I bring something up and I'm like, oh, well, why don't you do this for me? Number one is like an unmet expectation that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an area of preference that I have, not necessarily a lack in my husband's capabilities to meet that need. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's like my first reaction. My second reaction is like, I mean, I'm not married to a white man. I'm married to he's half black and he's half Persian.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, but obviously my dad's white, my brother's white. I have two, like, I also dated people who are white too. And submissive would not be the word I would use to describe them.
Yeah.
You know, before I dated and married my husband, I was dating someone for 2 years. I was sure we were going to get married. This was a long time ago. It was 10 years ago. It was actually what got me to move from San Diego to the Bay Area. And he was not submissive at all. Like, that would not be the word I would use to describe him. He was actually very strong, very confident, very sure of himself, and knew exactly what he wanted. And that actually was like, for us at the time, we had very little, we couldn't really meet in the middle. So it was like, he had an expectation of me. And I was like, well, these are the things. And I was very unsure of myself at that time too. Okay. But, I mean, he it's just like a different culture that you're raised in. Right. So like, he was an only child, like raised by a successful dad who was a business owner, and felt the same expectation.
Okay.
You know, his parents were married the whole time. So he was looking to get married as well. So like, that's what he knew. That's what he saw. And that's what he wanted. So it was like, I think the generalization around a particular group of people and saying those things is like a disassociation. Like, you're not actually associating the behavior with the actual character of the person. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, so you're saying, well, okay, I want to make sure I understand. I mean, obviously you dated a lot of white men, and you're like, the way you would describe them wouldn't necessarily be submissive. That's not the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about your interactions with white men, your dad, your brother, the guys you dated, all of the above. And I do agree that what you were saying earlier is that sometimes when people go online and are so verbal about the different things that a particular group of men or particular group of people isn't doing, sometimes it can very much be projection. Because I'm like, how do you go from this person wanted me to come over my house to now all Black men are horrible and white men are submissive? I'm like,
by one comment, like, why don't you come over here? Or what?
That? Yeah,
like there's 1,000 other reasons why he might not want to go over to your house.
Right.
1,000, including your attitude. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've had moments like that too, where I'm like, I was dating someone and it was like, hey, do you want to come here? Do you go there? And it's like, and a lot of, sometimes it was just like, this is too much work. But at the same time, it was like, is this too much work because of the color of their skin or because we're just not really into each other like that?
Well, and I think that's one thing that some women have a hard time accepting, that at the end of the day, there is such a thing as like you not being the type of guy that man may want. He may want a short, petite, whatever, and you may be a tall, voluptuous, the whole idea of rejection, I think it's very comfortable to talk about for men, like men being rejected. Like we make videos about that and people laugh at it. And there's whole movies based upon that idea of guys being rejected because they're this and that. But I'm like, a woman being rejected, I think is something that we're not really socialized to deal with, because if we do, because we all face it, but usually if we face it, it's because either the guy is insecure or because he hates his mama, or because he has communication.
Yeah, like it's the guy's fault.
Yeah.
He's been rejected.
Or he was intimidated by you. And it's like, also, actually could also be that none of that is true and he just didn't like you. And there's
or like didn't see what you had to offer and didn't care. And that's fine. You know what I mean? Like I've met people like that and I'm like, what the heck? Am I that bad of a person? Or you know what I mean? Like when you're dating people and you're like, man, I really like this person. Why doesn't this person like me? And it's like, you don't know. And especially if they don't tell you, it's like, you're never going to know. And you need to just get over it. Because when you find the right person, it just makes more sense.
Right.
And it has little to do with the color of their skin, ironically. It has more to do with like their character and like how they were raised and values. And communication and things like that. So she made a lot of jumps and a lot of assumptions there about, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what kind of white people she's dating.
I don't think she is dating white people. That's the whole point.
Oh,
because when she was literally like, I know you said you're like, I need to take notes because I was so long. And if I need to for other videos, like kind of break it up into snippets.
I might pause you next time.
Yeah, we can do that. Because I know that there was kind of a lot rolling together. But that's the whole point. From what she has stated, she hasn't dated white people. She approached the guy and was like, come over to my place. And he was like, hey, why don't you come over to my place? And then because he wanted her to come over to her place, now therefore white men are most submissive and she just needs to stop dealing with Black men. So like I said, that's the jump that she made. But notice she says, well, I need to start dating white men because they are more submissive and they are more agreeable and they do treat you better. And she made all these assumptions, although earlier on in the video, she alluded to the fact that she'd never dated them.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, you caught the detail there that I didn't, but it's like, yeah, you kind of wonder because there's just, I feel like there are certain expectations when you're entering into a relationship with someone who is like, not to bring Kevin Samuels into it, because I know that'll bring a lot of heat on a lot of things, but there's like a certain behavioral expectation that's a little bit different depending on and you and I talked about this the other day, depending on like where they are in like the class, like, are they high, are they middle, or are they low? And I think those expectations are a lot more relevant when you're in a dating situation, because sometimes the white family is a little bit more formal when it comes to having dinner, getting to know somebody, getting to know the person that you're dating. Like when we have Christmas, Thanksgiving dinner at my house, it's a very different situation than when we have it at Gabe's house. It just is. Yeah. Like we have dinner at a certain time, the table is set, all the dinner has to be ready at one time. We're like, that's not the case at Gabe's house. So it's like, I feel like sometimes it's a bit more formal in like the middle class white family than it might be somewhere else with someone else. Like, I don't know. I can only speak from my own experience. I just know that was something really that stuck out to me when I started dating my husband and when I had dated other people as well.
This total unrelated, but kind of related side note. Okay, green bean casserole, was that like a thing?
Oh yeah.
White people. Like, what is it about white people and green bean casserole? Like, I don't.
Hilarious. Yeah, no, it's like one of my favorite things that we had every year, and it had to have the French's fried onions on top of it, and it was like the recipe from that can every year. That's so funny. I'm like, I never even noticed that until right now. But yeah, I know that is a thing every year.
I never knew about green bean casserole until I started like talking to some of my white friends, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, I didn't run that stuff.
I mean, it is good. Depending on
what if you grew up with it, because you talked about getting the recipe from the back of the box.
Totally, yeah, from the back of the French's fried onion box. Yeah, and it's like not better with fresh green beans. You have to use a canned green beans in order for it to be good. Like we've tried to do a fancy version of it, and it's not good. Like it needs to be canned green beans and French's classic onions, and if it's some sort of variation of that, it's not as good. But again, it's been a few years since I had that, so I don't know. Maybe I've changed. My palate has changed a little bit. So
I see Black people. I don't know one Black person that eats green bean casserole unless they're swirling or unless they're married. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but I'm like, my family's from the South, and I never heard of no green bean. Y'all let me know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Someone just said Black people eat green bean casserole as well. I don't know who it was, but
okay.
This is why it's hard to generalize. So
it is hard.
Very hard to generalize.
I'll just say I can just speak in my experience, my family, and the Black people that I know. Green bean casserole was not a part of our repertoire. That's just saying we didn't have green beans, but it wasn't like casserole. It was like ham or different stuff. You know what I mean? Or collard greens. Like that was like our side.
Yeah, we didn't do collard greens. Greens.
Yeah,
I don't even know that I'm saying it right.
Okay, I was curious about that. Okay, so anything else in that video? Did you want me to replay a section of it, or to move on to the next?
I think we covered the high points of that video.
Okay, so now I'm going to pull up the next part, the next video for your review. Again, guys, if you're here, like, share, subscribe. If you want to make sure that your comment is highlighted, y'all know the drill. Super chats, Cash App, Venmo. And let me pull up the next video for you to review. Okay, I have like so many. Let me see.
Okay. So here is the secret.
Okay, let me make sure we got it. So here's another woman putting Black women up on game. Okay, so this is a Black woman putting other Black women up on game on how to get white men. Okay.
All right, y'all. So I got the scoop, right? So this is how to find a white man 101, period, for the Black women. So if you paid attention to my last video, I asked, where do these girls be finding the white men at? So here is the secret. I love the fact that the girls showed up for this, okay? Y'all about to get me fired, but listen up. So they say go to the gym. I'm at the gym all the time.
Who's they?
Looking at you.
What did you say?
Who's they? Who did she ask? Who's they? White people?
The girls? Okay. Wait, let me go back real quick.
She said, I asked in my last video how to find a white man.
Right.
And then she said they, but who's they? Is that her audience?
I'm assuming. Let me go back and double check.
Okay, totally fine. Just curious.
Okay.
Who these girls be finding the white men at? So here is the secret. All right, y'all. So I got the scoop, right? So this is how to find a white man 101, period, for the black women. So if you paid attention to my last video, I asked, where do these girls be finding the white men at? So here is the secret. I love the fact that the girls showed up for this. Okay.
Yeah. So she's talking to her audience.
Okay.
She's talking to her audience, who is primarily black women who are exclusively looking for white men.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Y'all about to get me fired, but listen up. So they say go to the gym. I'm at the gym all the time, and I promise you, they don't be looking at you. But try that. Try the gym. It was so many comments of people saying California. So looks like, bitch, we taking a flight to California. They said the country clubs. They said Top Golf. They said hiking. Listen. They said the casinos. Period. Money. Shmoney. If you're a parent, go to them basketball games, the football games, get in where you fit.
Number one, you find people at the casino, white people at the casino, they ain't paying for shit.
Right.
They're not getting rich at the casino. Nobody gets rich at the casino.
Fair point.
So let's just make that, the casino usually wins in those scenarios.
Okay.
The question is like, I think this goes back to like, where are you finding them and what are you offering? You know what I mean? Like there is a level of like, just like anything, like when you're trying to like date someone, you have to be offering something of value. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that she's not, because she very well could be. You know what I mean? Like I'm not here to judge. I don't know her.
Yeah.
But when you're dating, you have to, number one, be really sure that you have something valuable to offer. Because
common sense.
In my experience, especially with, and I'm just going to use the term high value, like productive, emotionally aware, even non-emotionally aware white men typically don't settle. So they're not like let's just, you could not even like how do I want to say this? Like as a white man, you don't even really need to be offering too much, but usually they pick winners. And I'm saying they very generally. Very generally, right? So like in my experience, like if I were to even think about, in my own family, like most of those people married equal or above.
The men? The white men?
Yeah, the men. The men. Yeah, everyone in my family has either married equal or above or far above. So, like, and far above meaning like a lot of different things, right? But they're definitely, they understand and they see value and they know how to recognize that. And I think if you were to just bust it even more open, like more like men in general are looking for someone or a person to add value to their life, period. And I think that goes outside of race, right? That goes outside of just a white man or a white man preference. Like, so if you're at the gym and you're not offering anything of value, you're not going to get stares. You're not going to get looks. Like that's just the truth, and there, I feel like there's also like an air about you, especially at the gym of confidence, or anywhere that you are at, of confidence. And I think men are pretty good bull like shit readers and can tell whether you're being fake or not. And if you're really fake, a lot of guys don't really want to deal with that. And again, I'm not saying anything about this particular woman. I'm just saying like at the, finding someone on a hike, like you're not going to pick up somebody on a hike. Usually people are hiking with their friends and or hiking because they don't want to be around people. So like you're not going to find someone on a hike. I mean, maybe.
You're just saying
everywhere. Yeah. Like this guy, where do you find them? Everywhere. They're everywhere. Just look around.
Yeah.
Totally.
So like doing a video, I mean, my first thought looking at that video was just like, you're telling on yourself if you have a hard time finding a population that's like I don't want to say the most likely to be here, but like white people are a majority in the US. So if you're having a hard time finding like the majority of people who exist here, then you're already telling on yourself. Like we know where you're living or where you're coming from.
It's like, and it's where are you hanging out?
Right.
Right. And so like all of that matters too. And so it's like there are certain places, and you know, being in the Bay Area for like 10 years, there's places that I knew I could go to where I would be around a majority of white people. Mm-hmm. There would be places that I could go to where I knew I was going to be the only white person there. Yeah. Like if you're paying attention, you can find the places where those people hang out. And then the question is like, how do you assimilate to those environments enough to be appealing?
Right. But you hit the nail on the head. It's like at the end of the day, you have to be offering something. Just meeting a white guy doesn't mean that you're going to be getting a marriage proposal. It's like, okay,
no,
what are you
offering? How are you adding value to said white guy's life? Especially if he's already well established, doesn't really need much. Like one of the things that, you know, if I'm just thinking about my relationship with the white guy that I had like 10 years ago, he didn't really need me. Like I was there because he liked my company. He likely liked how I looked. He liked that I came from a good family and that my, you know, and all these things, but he didn't really need my help or like need me. And if you're thinking about like being in a marriage with someone, and I say this all the time, is like your job as like, if we're taking the biblical approach to it, is to be your helpmate to your husband. So how are you helping your partner, the person you're dating, the person you're married to? Like, how are you helping them? And what do you have to offer? It comes back to like, what do you have to offer? And does that person like what you have to offer? So
basic stuff. Yeah.
Basics. But
and I think, you know, that's one of the things that I always talk about. It's like, what ends up happening sometimes when people talk about whether it's swirling or divesting is I found that these conversations usually give women a reason to deflect from their lack of relationship values. Because I'm like, if you are offering something good or valuable, then you'll meet guys in your race, outside of your race, who will be interested in you because you have a good product or you have something desirable. But if you have had all trashy, horrible relationships within your own community, you can't get along with men, you barely can get along with yourself, you think you're now just going to go into another community that you don't know as much about and just pick the high value men or the desirable men? Like, get real. You know what I mean? Like, you have to deal with yourself first.
Absolutely. Like if you're not actively, if you're spending more time on TikTok talking about dating people that you've never dated before, and you're not spending that time working on yourself, understanding yourself and healing yourself, then that's a problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's valuable time. That video, that first video where she had multiple cuts in multiple different places of her house, that stuff takes a lot of time.
That's a good observation. I didn't even think about it.
You know what I mean? That takes a lot of time. And so all of her mental energy is going towards idealizing a type of man that doesn't exist, likely, even in the community that she's idolizing. Mm-hmm. And she could spend all day writing in her journal about all of the things that she could work on and that she could accept about herself and that she could wrestle with, and she'd come out better, and she would come out with more value on the other side. Because there's value in these women, obviously. It's, do they see it in themselves?
And then do they
enough to enough to sit down and be like, what do I have to offer? Like, and how can I present that in a way that's attractive to a man? Whether he's white or black, totally different, totally up to you, or Mexican or Asian or whoever. But yeah, I mean, self-awareness is like key number one if you're trying to be in a relationship.
No, I mean, self-awareness that should be the word of the day. So
Self-awareness.
seriously.
And
Like,
knowing yourself, like we all dealt with different traumas and different things that have really messed us up. That guy that I dated 10 years ago, that white guy, I dated him for 2 years. And then at the end of 2 years, we were going back and forth. We sort of broke up, but we sort of didn't. There was still kind of a chance. And then he ghosted me. After 2 years, I moved up to the Bay Area to probably marry this person. Like that's where my mind was at. And I moved up there really quickly, realized we weren't really compatible. We didn't have a lot in common and we weren't really right for each other. And we broke up and I was like really on the fence because I really cared about him. I really loved him. I really thought we were going to like make it happen and it didn't. And he ghosted me.
Oh man, that sucks.
Didn't even respond to me. Didn't even break it off in like a normal, respectable way. And that was from a white man. So just think about it. You know, like everybody's broken. Everyone has their issues and everyone has their ability to deal with and not deal with certain circumstances.
Yeah, that's not.
And that really messed me up for a long time. And it took me a long, long time to recover from that.
Yeah. Because you thought, I didn't know you thought you were going to marry him. That's pretty serious.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
for him,
I'm a very purpose-driven person. So moving me from San Diego to the Bay Area, I was like, okay, like we have to see if this is going to work. And it didn't, obviously. So, yeah.
Now you made one observation and I'll continue. You made one observation earlier when you were like, something to the extent of white men don't necessarily have to bring a lot, but that they can easily get someone either on their level or above. And then I think you mentioned different people in your family. Can you expound upon that a little bit?
Well, I feel like just and you know, this is just my own experience, right? So if I were to think about some challenges or things that my family has dealt with over the generations, a broken family in the way that the Black community has experienced looks very different, right? So like my dad lost his dad when he was 5 years old.
Yeah.
So for him, like he did experience a broken family, like his dad was gone, you know, and that impacted him really young. And so, you know, there are things that over time just were hard to deal with and traumas that were hard to deal with. And not saying, I mean, I didn't want to bring specific people into it, but like not to say that I think my dad would agree with this, honestly. And if he ever sees this, he would agree with it. Like he knows that he married up, like that my mom was like the one that he needed to marry because he saw her value.
Okay.
And so, you know, but I think to a certain extent for my mom, you know, she was looking for safety and some different things that my dad brought to her. So for them, it wasn't really even about, you know, being equal, quote
like
unquote.
Class-wise.
It was like, I need this in a relationship. And he liked that about my mom. Like he loved that my mom was super smart and was a go-getter and ambitious. And I think to a certain extent it inspired him. And even to a place where, you know, maybe didn't necessarily push him to be ambitious in his own life, but he kind of like lived a really steadfast life in admiration of my mom and still in admiration of my mom. Right. So I think that was more important than, but it's, you know, I think it's slightly different because that's one experience in mostly connected homes, right? Like the home for the white family is a lot more connected, I think, generally than people growing, like it's not always the same. I feel like it's not always the same for the Black community, where it's like most people are growing up in single family homes with just their mother, their dad somewhere else. I mean, I'm making general statements here, but I don't know how that plays in that dating scenario. Whereas like it's different growing up knowing that the expectation of you is to get married and to have a family.
Yeah.
That was my expectation growing up. I didn't really have any other option. It wasn't like, oh, you know, and plenty of people got divorced that I know, like whose parents got divorced, and there were some of them were white, some of them weren't, but it was like, yeah, generally, I don't know if that like makes any sense, but yeah, or answers the question, but that's kind of like some of my thoughts.
Yeah. So speaking to your own experience, they both kind of offer a different perspective. I mean, it wasn't like they married in the same class or that necessarily. It was really, it was your dad who did the hypergamy thing, and you're saying you've seen that. Now I know there's this one. I don't know if I told you about this book that I'm reading right now about dating, and it's kind of breaking. It's trying to go into the psychology as to why people choose who they choose, what they choose, and I'm still reading through the book, but. They went through like millions of different profiles, did interviews, one-on-one interviews to ask people what was the main way that they're choosing their life partners right now. So what the sociologists found was that people said one thing, but then what they chose, their preferences, anonymously were a lot different. And both of the sociologists who were conducting these studies basically found that the number one thing driving women's interest of all across the board is, the number one thing driving interest in general is race. And they found that women all across the board, including Black women, white women, women of color of all ethnicities, had a preference primarily for white men. And then second, that might connect to kind of what you alluded to earlier about in your experience, what you've seen is that white men don't necessarily have to always bring their A game totally and completely, and they can still marry good women, or can marry women that have value. I wonder if it speaks to that, because based upon that sociological data, it showed that white men were just highly desired across the board, not just from white women, Black women, Asian women, Hispanic women.
You also have to think about why that is.
Yes.
Like, why are people primarily attracted to a white man?
Right.
Is it because society has held them as like a standard of success, safety, financial support? Like, I don't know the answers to that really. I know like there's a lot of conversations. I mean, I've had conversations at work and with diversity training and stuff like that. But, you kind of wonder what is the underlying preference for a woman, and what part of the white man represents that.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, but that's a question that I would have, or something I would be interested in knowing more about, especially if they've quote unquote, I mean, not dominated society, but generally held positions of power over time in the majority.
Yeah. Well,
so it's like, yeah. Anyway,
in the West, certainly. I mean, think about white more, whether it's patriarchy, whatever.
Right.
I mean, we have positions of power. It is primarily to this day white men, and they allude to this in the book. There's still things that I'm working through data wise, and I think they were working through a few different theories. But one of the theories that they had was that women's hypergamous nature is looking at white men, there's a connection to status, there's a connection to wealth, there's a connection to power, which obviously in America makes sense. You see that to this day. I know they're still trying to look at some other caveats, so I don't think that was like the final answer, but it's something worth investigating. And I know when you made that comment, I was thinking back to some of the data that I'm currently researching, and I'm like, I wonder if that's alluded to your point that like, yeah, they don't necessarily have to maybe do this or that, and they may still get these kinds of women. Interesting thought. I don't say I have the answer, but something.
I also, and I know there are some things that like never change. And then I do feel like being in the world that we live in now, where you can see options anywhere in the world, it changes the dating environment completely, right? Like if I were to just think about my parents' meeting story, like my dad worked at a golf course and my mom came to visit, and he was like, saw her and was like, oh, I'm done. Like I'm ready,
yeah,
I'm sold. And then they got married a year later. So like, I rarely hear about stories like that nowadays, where people have experiences where they just know off the bat, because They weren't on Instagram. They weren't on YouTube. They weren't seeing all these different people, different types. I mean, they weren't exposed to ideologies like the ones we're talking today, where it's like slightly destructive and untrue. So they didn't really think about that. They weren't talking like, oh, well, if I talk to my mom and dad about this, they'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, what's the ideology? Like, huh? You know, like they weren't as consumed in that. Like it was a much simpler time not knowing everything about everyone all the time.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that created its own, you know, issue, because it's like if you are isolated into one homogenous culture, right? And then your only ideas of another culture come from media, which for a long time it did, that still created its own issues. But I get it. Right now, it's
agreed.
Completely
agreed.
different.
And I would say, like, I didn't really learn or expand my thinking or understand that my experience was different than some of my friends growing up until I moved to the Bay Area, and I was like, oh, like my experience is way different than you. And like, I've come to these truths about life that are really one-sided. And I said this to you the other day, like, that's why you need to expose yourself to other types of people who grow up in different situations, look differently than you, think differently than you, in order to really expand your mind and your thinking on what's possible. But definitely don't just take that from the internet. Like, actually go talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, actually go on a date with a white guy and see what it's like. Don't pull your TikTok audience. Like, you're not going to get a good pull. You're not going to get a good idea of how to do that. You know, how to date a white man, or what a white man actually thinks. And you'll come to find that they actually there's a lot of people who think a lot differently, and they're the same.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, absolutely. Yeah.
Real quick, I do want to acknowledge there's a few comments. Dane C, it says it's the Hollywood image of white men desirability definitely plays a role. Black women pedestalize white men more than white women do, which says a lot. There is data to actually suggest that, for sure. We live in a liberated society that expects the results of a traditional society. And then Dane C, yes. So again, thank you guys for the super chats. As always, guys, like, share, subscribe. If you like this kind of content, like what we're doing here, the best way to ensure that you see more of it is by supporting your favorite content creators. Okay, so let's get back to the video. I know.
Yes, there's more, and I want to see more. What else does she have? What other strategies?
They said go to happy hour, okay? Which I have heard that a lot. Go to happy hour. Go to expensive hotels. Go to like the downtown areas where you're bound to meet the type of white man that you're looking for.
That's decent advice.
Can you believe that people are saying that they met their white man on TikTok, on here? Girl, they said go to Lowe's and Home Depot. Why didn't I think of that? Like, you know, white men are always doing some type of construction. Period. They fix stuff. Bob the Builder. They said online.
Again, where are you though?
Tinder and Hinge.
Where are you?
It was a little hit or miss for me
that are
with Bumble.
Filled with black men
but
doing
try at
stuff
your own
too,
risk.
so.
Guess where?
Wait, say that again?
I said, where are you? Like, if you go to the Home Depot in Emeryville, you are not finding, I mean, you're finding some, but you're finding, I feel like there's more black men in that Home Depot than white men. So it's like, where are you? You know, like, are you in Oakland? Are you in Poway? You know, like, if you're in Poway, my old hometown, like, you're definitely going to find people like my dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Depot, you know, so, I mean, yeah. So anyways,
okay,
let me go. Some of this is not bad advice. But this goes back to what are you bringing when you go to those places?
Yeah, just showing up
is not going to do it. Like, you have to be able to hold a conversation and talk about intelligent things and bring and add value, right? So they're not going to want to talk about being white men. I can tell you that. You know what I mean? So if that's the only thing you have to say, you know, like, you know, that's not going to really hold the conversation for very long. No. Like, you know, you need to bring yourself. You need to be yourself.
Right. If you even know what that is.
Right. If you know what that is. Back to if you know what that is. So anyway.
Okay.
Else. Coffee shops, bitch. Coffee shops. I love coffee. They say go to Walmart and be down the fishing aisle. That's where you definitely gonna find them at. You gotta go
Again,
to
quality.
the airport. So you want to take your ass to the airport, okay? So we catching these flights, we bound to meet somebody at the airport. But hopefully they going to the same like state or city or whatever that we going to, or country, because what happens if y'all lose contact? Like what? Go to Whole Foods, like them bougie supermarkets where you're definitely bound to find you a white boy, okay? And last but not least, they said go to the dog walk. Even if you ain't got no damn dog, just go to the dog walk, okay? Act like you got a dog. Pretend Lassie running around somewhere and just act like you lost your dog. And you're going to find somebody, okay? Period. So I hope all these gems helped y'all. Hopefully it helps me. Listen, we helping each other out here. Thank you to all the women, to all the girls that responded and made my video go viral. That's crazy. I was not expecting that. But hey, girl, listen, I'm helping us out. And let me emphasize on the word swag here, because I think you guys are getting it misconstrued because I said, give me a white boy with a little bit of swag. Give me a white boy with a little bit of swag doesn't mean that I want him to be urban, or I want him to be black, or I want him to act black, as somebody would say. But what I'm simply saying is he might have money. He might have career. He might have a bomb personality. He might know how to dress. Like, girl, what?
Okay, so based upon her advice, do you think that advice would help ensure that she would land a high value white man with swag and desirability and status?
Not in Walmart's fishing department. That's gonna be like 1 in a billion, right? So
especially like a model, maybe.
Like, you have to think about, like, I feel like if you're really trying to get after this, right? Like, you have to think about, okay, you just listed off that you want a white man with swag. So where do white men with swag live? Typically, they live in major cities where there's a good economy, there's good jobs, and they can climb the corporate ladders. Okay? So there's peg 1. Peg 2 is which cities? Because if you go to San Francisco, everyone you're going to find is wearing a flannel and jeans. Is that swag to you? Do you find that attractive?
Legit.
If so, you need to go to San Francisco. You know, if you like something a little bit more cultural, like we're in Miami now, you're going to find a lot of people who are very fashionable, very high class, like very into fashion and all that stuff. So, like, you got to think about the cities that you're living in. Like, you're not going to find white men with swag everywhere. No. 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 I've seen plenty of people across Whole Foods. It depends on the type of city you're in and where you are.
I go to Whole Foods all the time. I mean,
I must have broke the law during my lunch break.
Like, this says only white men can shop at Whole Foods. I must have broke the law during my lunch breaks. Look, I don't want to say a Whole Foods junkie, but I kind of became one just because I love organic food. I think it's important if you can get access to it, and that's just happens to be some of the best ways to get particular items. So no, not only white folks are at Whole Foods, but again, these kinds of conversations, to me, they're so telling, because again, if you have to create a video about how to meet a population that is the most likely to be found in America, it's like, already we know where you're at. And then also, I think the elephant in the room is just class. And that's kind of what you're alluding to.
Yes.
Like, you have to be bringing something to the table. Let's say you're a Black woman who runs into a white man at the fishing section in Walmart. Okay, but you're coming in with tattoos, you chewing on your gum, you got wigs, weaves, and sandals, talking in Ebonics, cussing out people, talking about, hey, white boy. Like, and you're talking to a high value corporate man who, you know, he goes
likes to fish on the weekends.
Yes, he's consistently interacting with maybe millionaires. He has clients who are millionaires. It's like, even if he is open to dating and mating out, you can't come with that kind of energy. You have to be a little bit more put together. So there's that
No question.
Yes.
Like you have to have some level of appeal. I mean, I hate to be like that. And I'm sure that could be taken out of context, but
no, you're fine.
But
I mean,
it's like,
you're being nice. People think you're being nice in the comments. So
oh yeah, that's awesome. Well, I just, I think it does come back to class at the end of the day, and like how you present yourself. And I can tell you, and like my husband will tell you, he plays 0 games, and he is not shy about telling people what he really thinks. And no way would he even look. He'd get out of the aisle. He'd be like, I can't deal with this. You know what I mean? Like he would just be like, I need to get out of here. I can't handle this. Right. There are actually certain places we don't go because we know the types of people who go there are not people we want to be around. For example, like we were somewhere this weekend, we were trying to eat lunch. We got to a festival, and it was a free festival. The streets were closed off. There was alcohol vendors. There was food vendors on the street. It was like 85 degrees. And we were like, we want to be nowhere near this right now. Like, we do not want to be in a place where people are like loose in the streets, like going crazy, like drinking, like it's hot. We were like, we don't want to be here. We want to go somewhere else. So it's like, you have to understand like that, I think it goes back to like really thinking about what type of people you're looking for, period, what their values are, what they like doing. And if you're not doing those things on a regular basis and you're making TikTok videos at work about how to get, a white man, like you're probably off just a little bit. Absolutely. Yeah. And class is a big thing. I mean, we talked about this the other day. Class is a huge thing. It's way different to be like, even growing up in a middle class family, when I'm in like high society, sometimes I'm like uncomfortable. I'm like, oh my gosh, are people going to know that I make a make a normal salary? You know what I mean? Like, even though nobody cares, I feel like nobody really cares there, but like,
and you
can tell when you're talking to someone if you have things to relate on and not.
One of the things I noticed too about really, really, really wealthy people is that, I mean, of course there's context, but people who had generational wealth, they have wealth, they don't necessarily flaunt with it. And to your point, they're very selective about where they go. You may find them in a country club, a golf club, but you have to have a membership to go there. They may not be going around wearing like the latest. Some might, but they may, at least I think in the Bay Area, the Bay Area culture is very subdued. So you'll see people sometimes in like some jeans and a little polo shirt, and they're not being super flashy. They may have like a Tesla or something really expensive, but they're not going on with the chains. You know what I mean? And again, you may not find that person on Walmart. They may be sending somebody to the store to get stuff for them. They're having their food from Whole Foods delivered. They're living a very insulated life because maybe they're getting their money, or they just don't want to be around certain. Like you said,
they're not even on the same playing field.
Yeah.
Like mentally. Yeah. Like they're not wasting time.
Yeah.
Getting caught up in like stuff that doesn't actually serve them and help them. It's like, you know what I mean? Like they're not getting caught up on YouTube watching this stuff. They're not commenting on your stuff. They don't care. They're doing stuff that feeds them, that is increasing their value and increasing their skills, increasing their worth. And they're not even really thinking too much about money because they don't have to. They're just thinking about things that add value. Most rich people are just thinking about things that add value, and therefore they make a lot of money.
Yeah. And that, like I said, it's a whole other conversation because you probably were born into it. You kind of have somewhat of a safety.
You have a different mind. Completely. A different mindset completely. Yeah.
Okay, real quick. Shout out to you, BGS. Good to see you here. And also shout out to you, Mr. Z. Some of my favorite content creators in here. Okay, so let's see. I think we got through that video. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Again, guys, like, share, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. And shout out to Laura again for doing the hard work and talking to me. I know sometimes people can get kind of scared. Actually, let me go to this.
Contradiction.
Is this the one where it's like something? Okay, this is the one. Okay, real quick. So this is a quick one.
Yeah. So what that got to do with black men?
It deals with the whole world. That's
y'all
what I'm
more
saying.
feminine
Like
to white men than y'all be the black men.
What? Bro, I don't.
Look. Contradiction.
No comment.
White men what?
No, because white men be more caring. They listen.
Oh.
Walk off, bro. Don't come back.
Oh,
Yo, you dated a white man before?
Hold on. Have you
dated a white man before?
I have one.
We gotta be like finish this
What
though.
I seen, like my aunts and cousins, they treat them better.
So when black men say white women treat black men better, y'all gonna accept that?
Honestly, it is what it is.
Okay, so in your experience, are white men caring? Are they emotionally available, and do they treat their women better? Are you trying? You're like, how do I answer this question?
Like, my husband is probably the most emotionally available person that I have ever met in my life. So, and it took me a long time to find someone who is emotionally available. And his dad, he's black, his dad is black. So I don't know. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, again, it's like, what do you define as listen? And to that guy's point, like, are you acting more feminine with that guy, or are you acting hard with the black guy because you're unhealed in some way? Like, I don't know the answers to that question. But usually people who are closed off are unhealed. And your definition of being listened to can change based on who you're talking to.
It absolutely
and
can.
what your definition, like is that person repeating what you say to them, and that's your definition of listening, or are they changing their actions based on what you're telling them? But it doesn't sound like that lady was actually dating a white man. She was talking to white people in her family. And she was observing behavior from the outside that white men were treating her family members better. And so I don't know what her experience is, obviously. But the question is like, is he treating her better behind closed doors as well? I don't know. I think it looks different, maybe. Or it doesn't. Like, it just, you know what I mean? Like, or it doesn't. It's just like, you're making an excuse because you don't want to do the work and you don't want to heal yourself. That would be my guess.
Right.
Usually the issues I have and the times when I feel unheard, it's like, am I really feeling unheard, or is it because like there's something in me that needs to be worked through? Because sometimes, like, when Gabe and I get into like arguments and stuff, I'm like, well, this and this, and I'm feeling this. And he's like, yeah, but I did this for you and this for you and this for you and this for you. And I'm like, oh, how did I forget all that crap? You know, like, you're right. You know, so it's like, mostly it's just, it's mostly me just like needing something really specific. And I either didn't communicate that, or I'm upset for some other reason and it's coming out that way.
No, you make a good point about so much of this stuff going back to self-reflection, going back to what are you doing? Are you projecting? I have literally seen, and I'm sure a lot of people in the comments can agree with me. I have seen Black women literally change their voice and their vernacular around white folks and white men, and kind of do like a Valley Girl, more submissive voice. And then they talk to people in the own community, and then the real comes out. So it's like, we've seen it in real form. You know, there's a bit of code switching, right? If you go into like all white environments and corporate, that happens. But it's like, a lot of times we'll hear, oh, well, they're just more romantic. And you're like, wait, did you actually date a white person? Well, no, but I just seen that movie. And then you see how they are around white people, and it's like, Yes, Brad. Like they'll be talking in a way, and it's like, ma'am, that's not even you. You're literally treating this dude differently than that dude, but then you're talking about getting different results. But like, you're not being honest. I just as honest. You know what I mean?
And I don't know what this is about, like, but in my mind, I mean, and I see this with white people too, is like making up, like you've watched something on TV or YouTube and you start to act like that because you think people like that kind of thing. And at the end of the day, nobody really likes fake people. Yeah. Nobody. Like, there's a reason that you are who you are. Like, if I were to just like preach to somebody listening right now, anybody listening right now, it's like you have something very specific and very valuable to offer. Whether you've been treated that way in your life or not, or been told that, or been encouraged by that, is one thing, but that doesn't negate that there is something valuable in you that you have to offer.
Right.
And if you just spent some time parsing through some of the BS in your own life and some of the hurt in your own life and use that to add to your story, like that in and of itself would be valuable to the person that you're dating, to yourself, and you'd actually be more at ease and you'd be less worried about trying to be the person that a white man likes.
Right.
Because you just be yourself, and then the right person would like you, and then it would actually be a genuine connection and you'd actually enjoy your life.
Right.
Versus being fake your whole life, trying to find this idealized version of the person who's just as broken and messed up as you.
Absolutely. No, that's totally.
But that's me like getting on my preacher box. Yeah, my preacher soapbox. Like, be yourself. Like, if I could give anyone advice, like, get to know yourself, be yourself, and then try and find somebody.
Yeah, no, that's important. Real quick, I do want to acknowledge, I saw Tony with the Cash App. Shout out to you with the 3. It says, ask about the Black women that think they're better. But that there's better options for white men over white women. I'm not totally understanding the question, Tony. I'm sorry, but if you want to drop it in the comment section, let me know. I'm not totally understanding the question. Also, guys, like, share, subscribe. I know the drill. I think I did see some other super chats come through. It says she wants a Travis Kelce. Kelce acts like a Black man. So they're talking.
I don't know who that is.
I think that's the football player that dates. I mean, he's dated white women before, but he dates Black women too. It says Swirlers going on a cul-de-sac tour. Keep loose. It says only women. Okay, yeah. So I think we got that one about the Whole Foods. Okay, so let me see. Did we finish this one? Oh no, yeah, we did. So we finished that one. I got so many here. Try to close this out when I'm done. Sorry, bear with me. Bear with me here. Okay, y'all know the drill. Like, subscribe. Let's see, where do we want to go next? Okay, so here's another one that I saw. I thought that was actually really interesting. You can weigh on based upon your experience.
Okay.
So it's white men make better lovers.
Oh gosh.
You're already triggered.
Yeah, I'm already nervous.
Treating you better. He made you feel more feminine, right? Yeah. Okay, so can you go ahead and explain that?
I mean,
what did he do that was different than dating a Black man?
Just more thought processing into how they want to treat your woman. Like, they really, he's had a hard day at work. I had a hard day at work. We're tired or anything. But I come home and there's a blanket in the middle of the living room, candles everywhere and everything. I swear I'm still waiting for a Black man to do that for me. I come home and it's just soft.
Have you asked for that?
Baby, I miss you so much. I want
That's
to
one
dance.
question.
What'd you say?
Has she asked? Has she told that to a Black man? That's her expectation?
What, to have dinner ready when she gets home?
I don't know, to have a blanket and flowers and all that stuff. I mean, is that like, and how far into the relationship are you with that person is my other question.
Yeah.
Is that your first date, second date? Have you been dating for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years? Are you married? I have a bunch of questions.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, fair point. There's context to these conversations. Usually people don't want the context. It's just about the narrative. Oh,
Right.
sorry.
Well, that, welcome to I'm like, I need more information to fully understand and fully answer, like what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry. I'm still getting used to these. Sorry about that. Okay.
There we go.
Let's go back.
Dance with you today. Oh, it's not like it's our song or anything. I just want to dance with you. Like really, there's dinner laid out and everything. Like no pressure. I didn't even hint at it. I don't hint. I don't do nothing. An interracial relationship, I feel so much more different. I feel so much more respected. I'm sorry.
Oh,
This is for y'all. This is for.
So she said in a interracial relationship, she feels more respected and more loved and more cared for, and white men are better lovers.
I don't know what that's about. I don't know if that's like delusional or normal, or maybe she does feel that way. I mean, I don't know. Like we are what we tell ourselves. So if she feels, you know what I mean? Like we believe what we tell ourselves. So if that's what she believes about being in relationship with white men, that's how she's going to feel, and she feels that, and then she behaves in a certain way based on that. So if that's a belief, if her belief is that black men are hard to know, non-emotional, hard to get to know, whatever her thought is around that, like that's going to impact all the way down. So if she believes that about black men, and then she feels closed off herself, and then feels like she needs to be guarded and act hard, I don't know, then that's the experience that she's always going to have with black men. Yes, if she thinks white men are the king and are emotionally available and there for her and do all this other stuff, she's going to feel more respected and more loved. Therefore, she's going to act different. I mean, that's how it works. What you believe about someone impacts your thoughts, impacts your feelings, and ultimately impacts your actions. So unfortunately, I feel like for a lot of black men, they're starting probably in a hole, whereas white men are starting on a pedestal. And if we're really getting into the race thing and you're wanting to like break that down, and you're also anti whatever, but you still idolize white men and white people and all this other stuff, like there is never going to be any sort of normal black-white interaction at all, because you have a certain idea about people that's impacting everything else.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. If you're coming into a relationship and you're already assuming that this white man is going to treat me, white men are more romantic, which is something that I've heard. What white men are more submissive. Well, you heard that.
And then you wonder why black men marry white women. Or Asian women or whoever else. If that's what you think about black men, you know what I mean? Why would they want to date you? Why would they want to date you?
I mean, no,
because like I said at the beginning, men want someone who's going to add value to their life. And if you believe the worst in them, men don't want to be a part of that. They don't want to be they don't want to be coming home to a woman who thinks the worst of them.
Yeah.
They want to be coming home to a woman who thinks the best of them and has dinner laid out for them. And if they don't, they have something else that they're doing for them and supporting them in some other way. So it's like, you get what you get, period.
I mean, you said a lot. You said absolutely a lot there. I mean, that's kind of the conclusion that I come to. You looking at the comments. It says, remember, these are the same women who often prefer non-black hair over their own black hair. So clearly their mental state is anti-black in general. Shout out to you. I've got this a whole nother conversation. Y'all know the amount of heat I've gotten just for trying to encourage women to wear their own hair. Whole nother topic. But I think there's something to be said about the fact that if you're projecting, and I did a video about this yesterday where it was a black female therapist who was getting all this heat and talking about black men were attacking her and protect Black women, but it's like, if you see the way that she came at men and the way that she was projecting, it's like, ma'am, they're not coming after you because you're a Black woman. You're being disrespectful. And if you're coming with that energy, of course you're going to get disrespect from men who look like you, because you've already made up in their mind that you need protection from them. You've already made up in your mind that they're the problem. So that definitely can impact not only the inner relationship they have with their own men, but that could also, and usually does impact now, how they idolize white men, which we're starting to see in some of these things. And it's interesting, you know, in your experience, just based upon some of the things that you said, you're like, that's not my experience. Your husband is Black and he's been incredibly romantic and emotionally available, as was his dad. You were going to marry a white guy and that was not your experience with him. So,
well, and you know, like what I would like to say as well is like, this goes both ways, right? So it's like, I think the same level of self-awareness and knowing yourself and healing yourself applies to men as well, right? And so if you have a certain belief about a Black woman that is not true, and or not true to the person that you're trying to, you know, is not true about everyone, then you're also shutting yourself off in the same way that they're doing to you, right? And so I think whatever belief you have about who you date or who you think is going to be better than the other person, you really have to examine those, because you could be shutting yourself off from someone that you never would have anticipated and who's actually the right person for you. Like if I were to even talk about like, you know, meeting Gabe, like he was not in my mind. If I had met him 10 years ago, he's not in my mind someone who I would really enjoy, really appreciate being in a relationship with, feel like we're really compatible and meant to be together, because I didn't know myself. And I didn't know the things that I believed about how I grew up or how, this, that, or the other thing. So I wouldn't have even recognized him if I didn't do the work. So I would say it goes both ways. And just, we're talking about specifically that interaction, but I think what we believe matters greatly.
Yeah, but people in general, it doesn't matter their gender. It doesn't matter the rate, like what you believe impact not only the way you act and carry yourself, but the way that you treat other people. I think that's absolutely true. Okay, we're getting okay, wait 1 second. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, Caleb, I agree with your comment. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Wait, what happened? Okay, I'm like,
well, I'm reading Caleb's comment about she treats white men differently than Black men because she didn't go into it with bad faith about what he's like, which facilitates the better dynamic, which I would basically summarize as what I just said.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
On the same page with you there.
Okay, so I got some more. We're getting there. I mean, you're putting in the work here. I appreciate you. Again, guys, like, share, subscribe if you guys like what's going on here. Shout out to Laura again for her hard work and just being here to offer her perspective on just her experience as a white woman, being in a white community, having dated white men, having white fathers, brothers, and what it means to be in a relationship with men in her community and how things can be projected. So here's another one. White men treat us better.
Is this the same one?
It deals with the whole world. That's what I'm saying. Like,
white men and y'all can be the
Black
Black
men.
men.
The one we just watched, I think.
My bad. Sorry, you're absolutely right. It is the same one. My bad. I think
no worries.
Okay, because I'm like, did I get all of the? Okay, I saw Blackness. Okay, maybe this will be the last one of that, and then we'll start to go. Let's just really quick. Okay, so maybe I'll do one more, and then we may start to segue a little bit into the divester, more of the divester, because there's a bit. This, you probably don't know this, but from what I've observed from swirler divestors, sometimes they kind of go back and forth. They don't always agree on everything, but from what I've observed, swirlers may tend to kind of dangle with some of these ideals and some of these ideals about white people or white men that are just fantastical. And then divestors are just full-blown KKK quiches with the stuff. Like, you couldn't tell them any differently from a man who was like wearing a white hood, white cape. and burning crosses. Like they sound, I do. So I don't want to figure out, but
wait, so that's the divesters like that?
That from what
rooted in ideology. Swirlers are kind of like more open. Divesters are like die hard. Is that
from
what
I've seen? Yeah, from what I've seen.
Okay.
And again, not to be confused with people who are in interracial relationships, because I mean, you're in one. I know Black women who are in interracial relationships and don't align with any of this. I'm praising you or this weird pedestalization. Like it's just like these are two people
so
that
really like a non-conversation.
Yeah,
in a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. So not to be confused with people who just happen to be in interracial relationships, I do think there's a difference. This swirler and divester thing, there's like a ideology and a thinking behind it.
Like an obsession.
Yes, perfect way to put it. So I think this would be the last, I don't want to say swirler or swirler adjacent, and then we can get into it. Let's see. And then, like I said, if you want to stop me, you can. This will be the last one, and then I'll probably show you maybe one or two divester stuff, and then
sounds good.
Okay. If I need to stop, because this one is like a minute. I think it's a minute and 10 seconds. This one went viral a while back, but the context of this is she's a quote unquote pro-Black content creator. So a lot of her stuff is about Black people, Black men, Black women, and about building up the Black community. So that is the context of this particular content.
So she's in support of healthy narratives.
Yes, she's in support of, Black things, Black women, Black community. She talks a lot about colorism, the experience of Black women. That's what she's about. So I'm going to now play you her perspective, and then we'll go from here.
Okay. Y'all gonna cancel me, but today marks the day that I will be dating outside of my race. And I know what you're about to say. Aren't you pro-Black? I am. But as a dark-skinned Black woman, the most hate I get is from my own men. And me restricting myself to only dating Black men is giving me little to no options. Because there's only like a small group of Black men who actually like women like me. And trust me, I've been trying to educate Black men about colorism, futurism, texturism my whole damn life. I do it on my platform every day. But a lot of them choose to stay dense and ignorant. And I'm sorry, but you're not about to ask me to wait for these men to stop being colorist. I cannot wait any longer for these men to stop the self-hatred. I want to go where I'm wanted. I'm tired of sitting in places where I'm not wanted and try to convince the people that I should be desired. I'm sorry, but I'm done with that. So from this day forward, Shakira will be looking outside of her race when it comes to dating. Not saying I'm not going to date Black men. I definitely will. But to expand my options, yes, I will be dating outside of my race unapologetically. Thank you very much.
Now, the reason I know there's probably a lot of this stuff, probably a lot of that you may not totally understand about the colorism, featurism, texturism, all that. That's very much a niche conversation. But a lot of times you'll hear sometimes people, for whatever reason, they'll feel the need to justify dating outside of their race. And they will say, oh, it's because my race of people doesn't like me. Or it's because the men in my community or the women in my community don't like me. And I've always wondered, okay, if a person decides to date somebody of the other race and they're leading with that narrative, is that like a turnoff? Like if your husband came to you and he's like, oh, I'm dating you, white woman, because none of the women in my community like me, and I've had horrible experiences, and they all think I'm too light or too dark or my hair. None of the women like me, so I'm dating you. Is that idea, is that going to be attractive to a white person? That's going to be attractive to white men. Like, oh yeah, I'll date you because the men don't like you. Is that a good narrative to lead with?
No, because basically what you're saying, what I'm gathering from that is like, you're my last choice. And I feel sad. Honestly, I felt sad watching hers because I felt like she's been trying to do something really good and she feels hurt actually by the experience. And so she's kind of going outside. But one thing that I can say from like a white perspective, at least mine, is like, we don't really think like that. We'll date anyone. Like I've never been like, oh, I'm only dating white men. I'm dating people that I like, period. Like whether they're like, I've gone on dates with I don't actually know that I've ever been on a date with an Asian person, but Mexican, Black, white, if I liked them, if we had stuff in common, I wanted to date them. That was like, I didn't really feel like I needed to make a point about race at the beginning.
Right.
So I don't know. That's where it's like, I feel like sometimes there's like extra pressure maybe in the Black community to like stay in the Black community. And so, especially if you're advocating or educating about things related to, colorism, some of that other stuff, you feel like you're obligated for the sake of your followers to stay in that. And do you need to? I mean, you can still educate on those things and be dating and or marry a white person. I don't see why you can't do that. I just think the hate is probably so, I feel like the criticism is probably so harsh that she feels like she has to explain herself, which makes me feel sad because she's probably doing a lot of good. And the fact that she feels like she has to explain herself is kind of rough.
Well, it's interesting because now I know your family's obviously very open-minded.
True.
We talked about it, and it wasn't an issue for your family that you fall in love with somebody outside of your race. No issue. Obviously there's a lot of people today who don't feel like that. And you being in California, San Diego, like that's a totally unique vibe. Like being out here, seeing an interracial relationship, I mean, quite frankly, seeing a same-sex relationship, intergender is nothing. Like that's what happens in California. You'll see everything. But there are still very much people out there who, look, I have a friend who told me like straight up, like, yeah, my family doesn't want me bringing home somebody Black. Like that very, 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 very much happens still today. And we see that based upon the marriage rates, based upon what people will say, but actually do behind closed doors. Like we know that is still very much a thing. But I think really I've always held the belief that if you can't get along with people in your own community, that is not setting you up to find somebody outside of the community, because wherever you go, there you are. And if it's relationship issues, if it's challenges, that's going to impede you. And like I said, colorism, that's really a whole nother topic, and a whole nother section. And that absolutely does exist. People, men and women are discriminated against based upon the way they look. You even said this yourself, right? You worked somewhere and you were aware that you got privilege because you were blonde. You're like, I know I was treated a certain way. And I was
in the South. Yeah, huh? I was in the South working on a boat, and I milked the heck out of it, honestly.
Yeah, you were blonde, and so you had a different experience than maybe I would have had, depending upon where that was, or somebody who was dark skinned with. So it's like we know that exists. But like I said, I've always thought, okay, if you're leading with that, if the narrative is these people in my community don't like me, so I'm now going to date and marry you, I'm like, I don't think that's a good thing to lead with. And to me, that really does sound like some unhealed things that need to be addressed, because now what are you projecting? If you're projecting low self-esteem, if you're projecting this or that, that's going to come out in a relationship in some way, shape, or form.
Well, the other thing that I would say is like, how often in the relationship is she educating the people she's dating on the things that she's passionate about? Because that can get exhausting as well.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like you don't want to be in a relationship where all the person talks about is trying to educate you.
No,
like,
you don't.
Talk about exhausting. It's like, I just want to hang out with you. Can we just hang out and talk and like be chill and like have you not educate me on things that I already know exist and that I don't really want to learn about? I just want to be with you.
No, that's fair.
Like,
and
is it okay? You know what I mean? Like, is it okay for that person to not be educated to the level that you are about your particular topic of expertise? And can you let it go?
Yeah, no, I hear you. No, that's absolutely.
That's just like a question that I have, because it's like if you spend all your, it's like kind of naggy. It's like a wet, it's like what they say in the Bible, like a leaky faucet. Like if I always was talking about why Gabe needed to know X all the time, he'd be like, will you be quiet?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
stop?
totally.
Like, can we just relax or like watch, like do this or do that? Like, he doesn't want me educating him all day. Like,
Yes.
well, I don't know that she's doing that, but she did say, like, I'm trying to educate this on this and this. And it's like, if he doesn't care about that.
Yeah, I hear you. She said, I'm constantly trying to educate Black men in how color is, feature is, texture is. To which I will say, well, who created colorism, featureism, texturism? Like, you live in a white dominated society. So if you think you're going to lead the Black community and then not experience that in white communities or other communities, like, ma'am, like, you're not escaping that. So that's why I'm saying it's like, sometimes I think these kinds of conversations, when you talk about swirling or whatever, to me, the issue isn't whether or not somebody ends up with somebody outside of their race. It's what's driving you, what's driving these narratives. And if you're pushing out these ideas and you're not even in a relationship, you've never talked to a white man, you've never even dated a white man or whatever it may be, and you've already come to these conclusions, and it's like, there's really something there to be unpacked,
Yeah. And it's probably, I mean, I feel like I grew up in a very open, non-judgmental home, but I can't say that that's been the case throughout my entire family line. Like, I know one of my grandfathers would not be happy at all
about who you married.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's a whole other thing too.
For sure.
Where it's like, even if you do find somebody who's like, they really are open, they love you for you, or they're willing to kind of ride with you, whatever, it's like, you're still going to have to maybe deal with the in-laws or the cousins or the family. Like, that is it's a real thing. So, and I think especially with some of the things that she was complaining about, her experience with Black men, it's like, you are absolutely going to find that in the white community. Even if it's not with that person, it may be with the cousin or the grandfather or the great aunts saying those things.
It just won't be directly to your face.
Yes, but
there's
it may
a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, unless a white person is overtly racist.
Yeah.
They won't say that to your face. They'll act petty.
Yes.
They'll let you behind your back.
Yes.
For sure.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, like that's like, one of my favorite things about being, is like being in Gabe's family is like, I know what you guys think for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to like deduct, like, I mean, my family is also very direct, so I don't really have to deduct either. Sometimes I wish we could roll through confrontation a little bit faster, but we all have our own issues. And I don't know that that's necessarily like a race dependent thing. That's just like how we are. So anyway.
Absolutely. Okay. So we're getting, did we finish that one? Let me see. Did we finish? Yeah. Okay. I think we did. Okay. So now I want to take you over to the Divester camp.
Ooh, I'm nervous.
No, you're good. I think I only have like 2 videos. I mean,
I'm like, I saw a comment that they're like crazy.
Yeah. And they're a little bit more, I don't want to say honest, extreme, however, but nevertheless, these are women who have clearly expressed that they want to integrate into the white community. And so again, I think it's important to hear whether or not that kind of mindset would be successful in them landing a high value white man. Okay, so let's see if I can pull this up. Let's see. Okay, so let's start with this one. Now, I don't think she would, this particular content creator may not necessarily call herself a divester, but she borrows every last one of her all their talking points. Again, guys, like, share, subscribe. Oh, also, I did think I saw a few comments I want to make sure that I acknowledge real quick. Okay, it says, CD, you can tell these Black women have an obsession with whiteness because they rarely say non-Black men. It's almost always white men. Yeah, no, that's
interesting.
That's true. This is like a child advertising to their parent that they're running away from home. Sure you are. Yeah, that's another thing too. I've noticed, like, sometimes I do think this is really about women getting attention, because if you're doing something, like, you don't necessarily need it. Yeah, you're just gonna do it. And if it's natural to you, especially, like, I work out, so I don't need to like go online and be like, hey guys, guess what, I'm working out right now, and then every few minutes, like, did you know I'm working out? Did you know? It's like, no,
unless you were like a health person.
Unless I'm a health person,
right?
Like, other than that, it's like, I don't necessarily need to advertise that as if that's something like novelty. It's a part of my everyday experience. So sometimes the way that these things can even be publicized or talked about, like, oh, you know, like, to me, sometimes it's like either they're trying to stick a middle finger or they're trying to inspire fear. Like these men are like, oh no, we're losing our women. Or maybe they just want attention. Because I'm like, if you're doing this from a genuine place, it's real and authentic to you. So you don't need to like always remind people and speak about it. You know what I mean?
Goes back to our theme of self-awareness and knowing yourself. Yeah. Because if you don't, then you don't know what motivates you. You don't know why you're doing what you're doing. And you're letting things that you're completely unaware of drive you.
Yes.
Which is a dangerous place to live. Because you have the illusion of control, but you don't really.
That part. Shout out to you, Maximus Styles. It says 10. This second video was really cringe. Yeah, there is definitely some cringe stuff going on here. It says most Black men don't care when we see sisters dating interracially. It's perfectly acceptable. Our issue with Divesters is why do they have to spew the lies and hatred towards the Black male image? I agree. This is why we're having this conversation. It's usually the lies behind it that I think end up really help. I don't want to say help, but I think they create more problems than are needed than actually heal whatever's going on. Okay, let me see. There's another one. Christopher B. It says, if you don't qualify for men in your own community, why is a solution to try and get to another community, skip the line past all of their women of value and marry their high value men? That isn't a solution. It literally is not a solution. That is fantasy. I've said that multiple times. It's like, if you can't get along with people of your own community, how are you now going to go to a community you're not fully aware of and then just pick like the best men from that community, as if there aren't other women competing for men in their own community? You know what I mean? Like, it's not logical. It's not logical.
Yeah. Again, you have to offer something of value. Men of value date women of value, typically.
That part. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And also, to be clear, it's like men and women generally value different things. There are some shared values, but it's like you also want to make sure that you're offering something that man values. If you can lay your edges good, that's great. I mean, that may be great for you and your girlfriends, but a white man may not necessarily be interested in the fact that you can lay your edges. You know what I mean? It's like you have to be offering something that he himself finds is valuable. It can't just be what you find valuable. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
and to reiterate the point again, everyone has something of value if you do the work. Like, you have to do the work to get to the place where you're offering value, because you do have value. So I just want to make sure that point is really clear. But you have to do the work to get there. It's like mining for gold.
Yes.
Right. Like, you have to dig, you have to find where the gold is, and you have to do the work, right? You can't just find and be with the high value person if you haven't done the work for yourself.
Yes. Okay. You know what? I just noticed I saw one more Swirler video I wanted you to react to. Can you handle one more Swirler video?
Yeah,
and we have 2 Divester videos, and then I think you're golden.
Let's do it.
Okay. So I'm going to do that. And you know what? I need to go. I do this all the time where like, I never plug in my computer, so I'm on like 0%. I don't say 0%. I'm low. So I'm gonna play this, and then I'm gonna go grab my charger and hope I don't get kicked.
Okay, I will too. I don't have a notepad here. I would take notes.
But. Okay, so bear with me, guys. Again, like, share, subscribe. Y'all know the drill, and let's pull up this one. And yeah, if you need to take notes, I'll be back soon. My charger's not too far, but I do need to get it. Okay, this is also from the same content creator that says that she's now going to be dating outside of her race. The one that we just reviewed.
Okay. Let's talk about dating in the Black community. The Black community is the only community that has normalized trying to find love in other places than our own. And that is because the Black community has a lot of generational trauma, and it has been hard for a lot of us to unlearn things that we have been taught by white supremacists. Now, there is a huge difference I see between Black men and Black women when it comes to dating outside of our race. Normally, when a Black man dates out, it's because he hates Black women. And before you say I'm wrong, all of them are very vocal about this. They will get online and say they're dating a white woman or a non-Black woman because Black women are too ghetto or ratchet or aggressive or anything that is basically a stereotype that a white supremacist made up. But oftentimes when I see Black women date outside of their race, it's not because they hate Black men. It's because Black men hate them. Most Black women who date outside of their race are not the preference in the Black community. So basically women who don't benefit from colorism, texturism, or featureism. And a lot of the time we don't feel appreciated by our own men because our own men vocalize how much they hate dark-skinned women or women with 4C hair or women who don't have features that fit the European beauty standard. It feels like a dead end. It feels like you're fighting so hard to convince your own men to like you when they just don't want to. However, as much as the Black community loves to date out, we also hate hearing about it and seeing our own do it. Black women get very, very outraged when we see Black men date outside of our race, most times because they're bashing Black women in the process. But Black men also really hate to see Black women date outside of our race, even when they don't want us to begin with.
Okay, real quick. How are you tracking? I know there's been a lot. There's been a lot so far. But I want to make sure that you want me to continue to play, or are you taking notes?
You can keep playing it. I'm trying to follow her. She's saying a lot of things. So
Okay.
I'm just trying to like
take it all in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Almost done.
Take a look at this next clip.
For a long time, every time I saw a Black woman with a white man, something would come over me. I don't know whether it's rage or jealousy or envy. It could be a combination of all three. Oh, goodness, I'm going to sound incredibly now, but I'm trying to be careful. Sometimes I feel like, as a Black man, we own our women. As a Black man, we own our women.
And I also experienced this firsthand, by the way. A couple months ago, I went viral for saying that I was going to date Black men and other races. My whole life, I dated Black men exclusively, and I've dealt with a lot of colorism, texturism, and featureism. However, Black men got so mad at me, and these were Black men who know on any given day they would never even try to pursue me because I'm not their preference. And Black men have had this narrative for a while where they feel like they own their own women and they don't want us, but they don't want anyone else to have us. And I want to have a discussion about this, so let me know what y'all think in the comments.
Oh.
You're like, okay, well, let me ask, because I know there's a lot to unpack there. She said that Black men who date white women hate Black women. Has that been your experience? Does he hate Black women, and does he talk about how ugly they are and they have horrible hair and nasty features and dark skin is disgusting?
No.
Is that what your husband does?
No.
Really?
No. Like, nobody that I have ever known says that. But again, I'm not in the community in the same way.
Yeah, no,
so, like,
you're not.
You know what I mean? So, like, you know, certain people might say something to, you know, their own people, so to speak, and say something totally different to me. It is literally a non-issue for Gabe. Like, this is not a thing. Like, we don't spend a lot of energy talking about this because he's like, I'm trying to build a business and make money and live my dream life, and all this stuff is a waste of my time and energy. That's literally how he feels. Like, he doesn't get wrapped into it because, number one, he doesn't really feel super connected to it, and he feels like it's literally detracting him or is an excuse to stunt his ability to grow. He was like, why would I go down all of that if it doesn't advance, like, if it's just going to stunt my success. So, like, Gabe doesn't, this is like a non-issue in our house. I've never heard him say anything like that. He would never say anything like that. He's like one of the kindest people I've ever met.
Okay.
So yeah, like, my own experience is like not even close to that. There's a lot of blame in that video and a lot of hate. Like, I just feel like when you use the term hate, it's a really intense word. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just throw the word hate around. Because I just feel like when you do, like, that's saying something a lot deeper. Like,
No,
you
that is a
have
strong
that
word.
own level
Yeah.
of hate and rage buried somewhere in there. Because whenever I have felt legitimate hate in my life, I am like boiling. I've been like boiling and or ready to, like, I've been really hurt by something. Is usually when I have felt that type of intense emotion.
Yeah.
And so even what the guy said, that was horrible as well. I hated that. Just like what he said. I didn't get the whole context of what he was saying, but like also terrible.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's just like a level of like healing in general that like almost needs to happen in order to get over some of this stuff. And I don't have any idea what that would take.
Yeah, well, and of course. And it's like, I mean, trying to explain to you, you know, the experience of colorism, futurism, it's like, you're not going to get it. I mean, you're a blonde white woman in America. So it's like, of course, there's always going to be a different experience.
Right.
Look, as a Black woman, it's like, I can say this, like, I'm not one to say that dark-skinned or darker-skinned woman, because I'm not white by any account. It's like, yeah, you're going to be treated differently. Again, to me, it always goes back to, okay, at what point are we being honest, calling a spade, and then now at what point are we starting to make excuses, falling into potentially some self-hating ideals because we're not dealing with our trauma? I know certain white females should start wearing Afro wigs.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Well, that's okay, because, you know, I've always, I know the only thing that the guys probably heard on here was she's spending this whole time talking about self-hatred, and all I'm seeing is a blonde wig. Next. I mean,
well, this is like, this shows you like the lack of BS that men typically are open to.
Yes, exactly.
Like, they're not even listening to the words coming out of your mouth, because the second they heard fake or something that was like maybe untrue or hypocritical, like they just shut you off.
Yeah. Well, and truthfully, I think that's why I notice in general, like when there's a breakdown, sometimes, especially if there's a breakdown in the genders, you said it perfectly. Like, you know, as a married woman, if we come to our husband and there's like, seems like there's an ounce of hypocrisy or not a willingness to take any into consideration things that we could be doing wrong, it's like it goes in one ear out the other. It's like you have to first own your thing. And I'll hear that a lot sometimes in the community where it's like, Black men are this, white men are this. And it's like, well, we're experiencing this issue or that issue, but because there's not a willingness to be like, okay, I'm first doing this, I'm first wrong here, then if you're trying to complain, if you're trying to express your experience, the men with their BS detector are just like, we can't listen to anything that you're saying because you're lying to yourself. You're not even being honest with yourself. You're complaining about us, but you're not even owning what you're doing wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So the lines can be blurred. And usually, like I said, when there is that deflection or that unwillingness to maybe own, then sometimes it can turn into, now white people are the saviors. Now let me just get a white man, or let me get into the white community, and then I'm going to have a better result. Everything I said before, from white men are more submissive to another thing I've heard: white women never struggle in relationships.
Never struggle?
They don't struggle. Like white men, like another common idea, like white women have it easier. Their men work hard. They pay the bills. They sustain the family. Like they don't. You women, especially you as a blonde woman, blue eyes, like you wouldn't experience the stress of, you know, finances, or you wouldn't necessarily experience the stress of a man who doesn't maybe really work hard, because your dad has money for you, your dad has a home for you, you probably have a trust fund. Like these are the kinds of different ideals that these women will grab onto.
Here's what I can say, and I'll be brief. Untrue. Not my experience at all. Most of the women in my family have worked and have worked hard. So I'll leave it at that, because that is like the most untrue thing. And to generalize like that is really
It'd be offensive.
a disservice to you.
Yeah.
And another reason why you're having a hard time dating and finding someone that wants to stay committed.
That part.
I just think that's the truth. Like, if that's what you're going into a relationship carrying, nobody wants to carry that with you. There are definitely burdens that you have to share as a couple, and untrue beliefs where you don't believe in the best in the other person. They don't want to carry that. Like, we're human. Like, we're not Jesus. Jesus carried all of that for us, right? We're not those people. We try, but ideally being in a mutually beneficial relationship where you both, I remember reading a study a long time ago about the people who've spent the longest years married.
Yeah.
And the single reason they stayed married is they looked at each other through rose-colored glasses. So I don't know if you've ever heard that experience, but they always saw the best in the other person, even when they were at their worst. So if you're and that was one of the key success factors for a long-term loving relationship that lasted many years, is that even in the midst of that person's mess and that person maybe not showing up the best for you, you still saw the best in them.
That's great.
Who wants to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't see the best in you?
You don't. And that's when it becomes toxic. And as a woman, especially, that's when the disrespect flows. Respect is crucial in a relationship with a man. And if you can't encourage or see the good side of him, that God side of him, even when he's having a hard day or he's in a tough spot in his life, if you can't, and then you use an opportunity to tear him down further, or you lead with disrespect, even if it's not with your words, but it's your energy, of course, like, that's going to run men away.
Yes.
That is just, and it don't matter what race of men that they gonna run.
The times that my husband has gotten the most angry with me, which is like 2 times, has been when I have disrespected a thing that he said or a decision that he made or didn't communicate about that. Like, that's when he gets the most fired up. Okay. And I'm like, I've only done that a couple times. And usually when I do it, I'm like, I never want to do that again. That was a huge mistake and I want to change immediately. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
I love this person and I don't want to make him mad and upset with me. I don't want to do something that upsets him. Like, no, I don't want to do that. So it's not really about me when I disrespect him. It's like, oh crap, what have I, it's like, what have I done? No.
Yeah. You don't want to do that for sure.
Yeah. So
CD says vast majority of the games women have been in the corporate world have been white women. So how can Black women depict white women as not working? Cognitive dissonances were, that's true. Yeah. They're talking about how affirmative action actually disproportionately benefited white women. Absolutely true. So it's like, in one instance, that shows white women have been working for a long time, but then white women don't have to work and they're taken care of. And these white men are like paying the bills. Like it just like the math ain't mathin'.
Yeah,
okay. So
my
I think
mom worked, so I worked. So
yeah, your mom worked hard and you worked hard.
Yeah. So I don't personally experience that luxury, at least yet. But I like to work. So
yeah, it's not a big deal. Okay, so I think we're officially now into the divester or the divester adjacent camp. So I'm gonna play this for you, and we'll get your feedback. This is from a
oh no,
she doesn't call herself. You're like, what did I just see?
I already feel terrified.
She doesn't call herself a divester, but she uses all of the divester talking points. And honestly, divestors sometimes go after her because they're just like, you're stealing all of our work, but you're just not giving us credit. But her talking points are pretty much what you would find on a open divester channel. Yeah, so let me play it just real quick and then we can go from there.
And the only reason I support aborting a Black child when it comes to it being male is because when I look at the Black community and the problems in it, it's associated with males and male pathology. When you talk about violence, it's associated with the males. When you talk about the, women being forced upon, it's the males. When you talk about drugs, it's the males. When you talk about the fatherless children, it's the males. Every single problem that is happening in the Black community, you point to the males and then you have the culprit. So for me, I think that not selectively breeding is very irresponsible when you are the only one who has control over who gets to Earth. Your womb, it carries the person to Earth. So if you're the only one with that power, regardless of whatever he wants, I feel like if Black men want Black women to give birth to their children, then they need to act like it. They need to go out, they need to clean the community up, they need to stick around, raise their children, stop being violent, stop forcing themselves upon women, stop toe tagging us every 5.5 hours, and then we won't have a problem with having your children. If they were being responsible, this conversation wouldn't be happening right now.
So, okay, so these are of the
Oh my gosh. What?
So these are the lovely women who want to integrate into your community.
That woman wants to marry a white man.
So they will say, and this is how they get around it, right? Because they'll say either date a white man because they don't toe tag, which is a euphemism for deletion, things like that, deleting people. Or they'll say, expand your options, marry these other races of men because they're not doing all the things that she just described. So they will openly encourage women to date out because they want them to get away from the barbaric boogeyman that Black men are. So then my question to you would be, okay, women who are coming with that energy, do you think that would widely be accepted?
No.
In the white community?
Unless you marry someone who's into eugenics.
Right.
I mean, honestly, like completely absurd and delusional and super effed up. And it's like, it makes me a bit angry. Like I could actually get into it with this lady.
You probably would.
Like this is like the type of thing that would get me into a fist fight. And I'm not really like that. You know what I mean? Like,
no, yeah, fair.
Like you straight tripping, period. Like to be talking like that about anyone, let alone people in your own community. Like you have a ton of work to do, a ton. Like you need to get off the platform and go to therapy.
For sure.
Like no question. Like whatever damage you have done, like the answer is not to kill off Black men. Are you kidding me? Like that makes me so angry.
No, of course. And then again, I think, okay, if that's the energy you're going with, how would a high value wife?
Good luck. You're going to be single your whole life. I hate to be like that, but like again, back to adding value. Like this isn't adding value. Like if you think that it's okay to extinguish people, what makes anyone believe that they wouldn't be next in line?
Exactly.
And so she's talking about that with Black men. She's probably talking about that about other people too.
That's true.
She's operating under a completely different mode. Like the fact that you would just say that and throw that like blatantly around means that you're capable of much worse.
True. Because if you feel comfortable going online in a public platform and saying
you would kill off Black babies, like get out of here. Get out. There's no room for you. I mean, not metaphorically, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
not literally, but it's like, why are you doing this? Yeah, I agree, Crispy. Like, garbage, complete garbage. That's just like my general response.
No,
like,
you're just like,
you know what I mean? It's like, you want to bring that lady to church and help her meet Jesus.
At that point,
that's the only thing that's going to break that cycle. Like that level of self-delusion and self-deception can only be broken by one thing. And so I won't get on my preacher box, but yeah, that's straight from the pit of hell.
I've talked about that. I called it what was it? Demonology. And it's like how this stuff gets straight up into, it's like, now you're past a point of, this isn't just like hurt feelings. This is like, you are legitimately like you're
on
dealing
the agenda of the
Yeah.
enemy.
on the enemy,
sure.
like dealing with doctrines of demons, like on a deep level. And there is a spiritual cleansing that needs to be done that no
Absolutely.
man, I don't care. He could be the whitest Nordic looking thing out there. That man can't save you. You need like a spiritual, like,
Yeah, like that's the type of stuff from like the pit.
yeah, no, legit.
Yeah. Is that what everyone thinks? I mean, are these women dating white men?
What do you think? Well,
No.
and this is why I'm asking you. I'm like, okay, so is this if a woman is coming with that energy? Because again, these are the women who are saying now they're a little bit more obviously more radical about it, but their solution for these women to escape these boogeymen is to go date out. Find a white man, find a non-black man out there, but it's to date out, and then in the process to abort any baby that would, And I'm like, okay, is that attractive? Would a high value white man go for that deal? And so that's
I guess it depends. Like we could get super political, but I won't. Like it depends. If that person shares your agenda, it might be attractive.
If he shares your agenda, but then what are you attracting at that point?
I mean, you're attracting someone who's not interested in you because that's their agenda. They don't like black people, so they don't want to date you. So if that's also their agenda is to kill off black men, like they don't want to date you because they don't like black people. They're racist.
Right.
So it's like you're not really in the same. Yeah. This level of ignorance is what gets the most attention. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I agree. Lou Casey, I'm with you. 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so one more than I think you have really
gosh, hopefully like I don't even some of this stuff is wild.
Exactly. But and again, this is exactly why I'm glad we're having this conversation, because they'll say the most outlandish thing and then say, oh, just get a white man. And it's like, wait, do you even know a white person? And if you do know white people who are in agreement with this, they're probably practicing eugenics, as you said, at that point. And is that what you really want to be around? Okay, one more for you, and then I think you've gotten a pretty good understanding.
Oh my gosh, I'm like had my own lesson here.
Okay, so this is from a content creator. No, she's a full-blown divester. And while I agree with literally nothing she says, what I do appreciate about her is that she, I think, is pretty honest. She's an honest voice from the divester community. So this was something that she did maybe a year or so ago, but I think it's still relevant, where she was just talking about, well, I'll let them play it for you. Okay. Let's see. Go back. Okay.
I was wondering why no one thought to say and voice their opinion that when I look at these white men, they are the epitome of masculine, and watching some of these police officers manhandle these black men in the street is very attractive, and it's a turn on, and I'm wondering, does anybody else feel like that?
Hold on.
Yes, Lord.
Y'all off the chain, okay? Y'all are off the proverbial chain.
That's Discord talk.
I'm telling you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, why has nobody said that? Because I'm like, that's masculine. You talk about masculine.
We say that all.
Yeah, you say that for the back.
Yeah, you have to save that one for the back room when we got the door closed. Get with y'all.
We use the hard R for long.
Okay. Yeah, I'm talking about, we say the hard R so hard it sounds like we growling back there around this bitch.
Oh, Tenasia, you got to come back there with us.
Okay. So grossed out. Gross.
Well, so again,
the fact that there's many of them in a room laughing like this is just like someone farted in the room. Is like, what? Like, yo, I was waiting for someone else to say that. You're like, you were?
What?
Who says that? I mean, whatever. Everyone's got their own thing. Everyone's got their own, people have all sorts of fetishes and obsessions. I mean, it's like, if that's what does it for you, fine. But I won't say it's weird. It's like, if you're on top of that, like, go ahead, like, have an obsession with a white man. Fine, whatever. Do your thing. What do I care? I don't care. But it's like, if on top of that, you're like downgrading and like using that to degrade or dehumanize people in your own community, you're just as bad as the white supremacist.
Well,
you're equal. So it's like, I feel like when you take some of this ideology and you really break it down, you're just as much of a white supremacist as an actual white supremacist, if you believe these things.
Unfortunately, they're two sides of the same coin at that point, as far as
like,
and as far as the overall goal.
Yeah, because you yourself are dehumanizing people.
And yourself too, if that's,
and yourself,
because it's like, by the way, you're black, so okay.
And maybe a white guy has, is cool with that too and has a fetish on that side, but that's like fetish stuff, obviously.
Right. Fetish stuff, and it's like, who and those kinds of relationships, I can't imagine.
They're not relationships. You don't have a relationship when that is your primary motivator. Like, if you're getting turned on by watching a white guy take down a black guy in a police video, like, you have other things that need to be worked out.
Clearly.
And like I said, people can have fetishes, do whatever they want. But the question I always have is like, what is that getting you?
Right.
Is that getting you lasting peace? Do you actually feel good about yourself? Do you actually love yourself? Do you actually like want to be a better person and add value to society? And if the answers are no, then I think it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
That's just me.
No, I hear you. I absolutely hear you. Dane Teet says, funny enough, that's not the worst. Divested Z. You're right. It's absolutely not the worst that she said, believe it or not. But that may be
It is nuts that this is the type of stuff that's allowed on the internet, and then there's other things that are just like not allowed and like taken off. Like,
that's what I'm saying. No, I literally
talk about, isn't there like some sort of rule on YouTube or something about like if it's perpetuating hate speech? Like, those last two are, I mean, the last one, whatever, the one before that is hate speech for sure. That needs to be taken down.
No, I hear you. I absolutely agree. I think now that one was on, actually, I don't even know. I mean, to me, the fact, because the channel, if you actually see the thumbnail of her channel, that alone is just like, why is it still up? Like, it's literally a violent act done on a black man. That's like the image of her channel. And it's like, look.
How is that not being, it's like, that's where it's like, you can get into a whole nother conversation, which we have gotten into before, yes. But it's like, what? Like, that is not okay at all.
Absolutely. Mr. Z, what's going on? He's one of my favorite channels that I like to peer into every so often. It says, Shay, Divesters and Swirlers over romanticize white men as a tool to gaslight black men into working themselves to death to be equal to the mythical, magical white men. Shout out to you, Mr. Z. Also, I see CD. It says, I would think a masculine white man wouldn't need a badge and gun and would go one-on-one unarmed. Maybe my view of masculine is he's like, yeah, if you're really masculine, like you would actually go like fist for fist. Like, yeah,
well, again, it's like, what is your definition of masculine? Like, is your definition of masculine to like be able to beat up anyone on the side of the street?
Which is not like, that's not really masculine at all.
Yeah, I'm like, do I believe my husband will protect me above all else? 100%. And he's not going to get in a fight with everybody on the street. Yes. Like, he's actually the one who's like, we need to run right now. We need to get out of this situation. Like, I'm not confronting anyone. We're not doing anything. We need to get out of here. Like, this is terrible, a situation to be in.
Right. It says, for the guests, do you ever have Black women come at you about your husband or see weird interactions between your husband and Black women? This is for you, Laura.
I have not. I'm trying to think if there was a specific time, but I haven't really.
That's great. That's great. Also, I know, like, from what I know about your husband, like, I mean, he's not like crazy dark. I mean, he's not light, but you know, it's like I think he can blend in a bit. So somebody could look at him and kind of think, okay, is he this? Is he that? Is he that?
He can be a bit ambiguous. Like we live in Miami, and a lot of people think he's Puerto Rican and start speaking to him in full Spanish, and he's like, oh no.
No, I'm really
like, yeah, like, no. So, yeah, I mean, I think it would probably, you know, it might be a little bit different, you know, but he can be a bit ambiguous, especially in Miami.
Yeah, that plays a huge part. I think you being in Miami, him passing for Puerto Rico, like that, I think plays a huge role. Now, if you were someone like as dark as my husband, that probably would that probably would make a difference. And like I said, that's really where colorism can, you know,
change things.
Yeah, it really can. And then also environment too. You know, like I said, Miami, Bay Area, we see that stuff all the time.
I got more hate in general for being I mean, we've only been here for 10 months, so I can't really speak to that, but I got more hate in general in the Bay Area if I was hanging out with Black people, period, not even with someone else.
Okay.
Like I've got, yeah.
That makes sense.
Not even hanging out with Black people, just by myself. Like I had a lady trip me at the lake one day.
Lake Merritt?
At Lake Merritt. I was literally running around the lake, and she was walking by herself, and she stuck her leg out, and I saw her do it. But I tripped over her leg, and so I didn't fall to the ground, but I tripped over, and she turned around, she looked at me, and she was like, what did she say? She said something horrible. She said something like white bee. She was like, that's what you get, white bee, or something like that. And I was like, whoa. I laughed at her because I was like, what? Like,
wait, is this a Black woman?
No.
A white woman.
It was a Mexican lady.
Oh, a Mexican woman.
Yeah, so it wasn't like it wasn't that was.
Oh, so it wasn't because you were like hanging around Black folks and then they were.
But
like,
I've had another experience around the lake where I was hanging with other people, and it was a Black woman who said something to me, and the person that I was walking with was like, "Oh, don't worry about that," and I was like, "It's fine, it's fine." Yeah,
yeah. I mean, like,
but it's just, you know, it's just. Yeah.
I mean, look, I've in the Bay Area is diverse. I've had my fair share of experiences where it's like, you ain't supposed to be around here, you know.
Right.
So you still,
Pleasanton is like a different place too.
Pleasanton versus a Danville versus a Alamo versus, you know,
Walnut Creek, all those places. Yeah.
You know, all those things are very different. Okay, this is a question for the guests. What's your views on this generation of promiscuous young women getting married? Do you think marriage is rising or declining?
Unfortunately, I think it's a lonely road.
So what does that mean?
Well, you know, I feel like the more, I don't know. I mean, the men could probably speak better to this, but you know, I've heard lots of horrible names called for people who are very promiscuous, and I don't know. It doesn't seem like men find that ultimately very attractive at the end of the day for long-term relationships.
No, not at all.
So it's like that. They're fine with you if you're promiscuous and they're just trying to hook up with you one night, 2 nights, a few months, depending on how high maintenance you are.
Yeah.
But for the long-term relationship, I just feel like so much of that stuff can really impact your level of intimacy with your husband and your level of ability to connect in a real and meaningful way. And if you bring a lot of expectations, you're going to have a lot of stuff. You already have a lot of stuff to work out when you get married. So it's like, add that to the pot, and it can just make it more complicated, especially if there's unspoken expectations or whatever else. So hopefully that answers. I do think it's unless women get a huge wake-up call, I think unfortunately feminism, to the degree that it's gotten to in these days, has harmed us more than helped us. I feel like feminism back in my mom's day was very different than it is now.
Yeah, because it was just really about, it's progressed.
Like it was really just about like working and being seen as equal and competent and capable of doing stuff, you know. Whereas like, so my mom, like when she was in the work world early on, you know, she had to deal with a lot of different people's doubt and stuff. And my dad was like fully supportive of her, you know, doing everything. And that was like the feminist view. Like my dad was considered feminist because he was okay with her working and doing stuff.
Okay.
But nowadays it's like, you don't need a man and you don't need this. And you can do it all on your own. And like, all the women are miserable. I just read something today on Instagram that women are outpacing men in how much and how frequently they drink for the first time ever.
What? Where did you read that? You have to send that to me because that's.
I will. It was a guy, Patrick Bet David, posted it.
Oh, because you know, usually for. Because you know, I've been part of a 12-step for a while, and it's not necessarily like AA, but it's for people who know people who've struggled with that or any kind of addiction. And generally, you'll primarily see women in there. Now there are a few men in there who talk about experience with moms. Like, of course, there's women who do struggle with it, but I think generally, historically, has been more dominated by men. But a lot of things now that used to be dominated by men, the tides are turning. Even if you think about extramarital affairs or just cheating, I mean, that is changing a lot. And you're seeing cheating and dating out or stepping out, whereas it used to be a thing that was associated with men. So it's quite interesting and also not surprising.
Yeah, I just feel like I spent a good portion of my 20s. I mean, you know this, obviously you're my friend, but I mean, we spent a good portion of our 20s single.
Yeah.
And doing life and providing, you know, for ourselves, getting a job, paying rent, paying our bills, doing all this stuff. And I made it work. Was it my favorite situation? I mean, looking back, there are parts of it that I'm like, oh yeah, you know, this and that. But then there are other parts where I'm like, my husband just adds way too much value and sanity to my life. Like the level of emotional toil that I go through now compared to what I used to go through by myself is way less, because Gabe will just be like, no, snap out of it. Like, you don't need to be feeling that way, and not in a bad way, not like in a discounting my feelings way, in a helpful, productive, because he's non-emotional. He's not the same. He doesn't get as torn up into his emotions. And I'm like, like freaking out. He's like, it's okay. Like, it's going to be fine. Like, da da da, or whatever, you know? And so I feel like I'm way more balanced and way better because I'm in a relationship with my husband, like 1,000 times better.
I can say it was like, even if I think back to it, like, honestly, we wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for my husband. I'd probably still be in corporate somewhere, you know, striving for some pennies, you know. I mean, look, YouTube is its own thing. Look, it's its own struggle. That's the sidebar, but it's like, it's different. Like, I'm home, I can cook dinner and different things, and I don't have to think about like, let's get up at 5, have to deal with those personalities. Like, I really wouldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for my husband. And I was like, I sat down and really thought about that one day, because it was like, I got married and it was like, damn, so much changed. This is not even the emotional stuff, it's just like in a strictly life itself. And then you go online and you hear someone talking about like marriage woman. There's one video that was like, it was saying married women are eating basically SHIT, right? Like, they're just eating crap, but they're lying about it. And happened to be a single baby mama who, I don't think she knew who the daddy was, or the daddy wasn't there. And she also worshiped white men. She said white men were better. but then was saying marriage was trash. So it's like, you obviously know there's some stuff going on there. But I'm like, you mean to tell me, both of us who have been in corporate and know the grind and the struggle of what it means.
I'd still be there, yeah.
Yes. And like me comparing that to here, and I can sit here and have a conversation with my friend and have a conversation with these lovely people.
Yeah.
And talk at discourse at our own leisure, and then get off here and then make dinner and Netflix and chill with our husband and relax. Like, to me, there's really that's not a comparison.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't trade it for any of the good things that I experienced while I was single, because it was very lonely and I was very sad a lot.
Yeah.
A lot more than people thought, of course.
Yeah. And honestly, truthfully, I think some of the stuff that we see online is just, it's like, what's the word where they're trying to give themselves a pep talk. Like they're trying to convince themselves that they're really not upset or that they're lonely or by themselves.
They can't be alone. That's why they're doing it. They can't be alone. They would feel too sad. I mean, there were days when I would come home and it would be like I was out with my 2 other couple friends and I would come home and I would just cry.
That's real. That's real.
And I did that many times, many times, where I would come home and I would be like, there's no one here. I'm all alone and I'm really sad about it. And it takes a special skill to admit that.
Yeah.
And a lot of these women don't want to sit down and think about how sad they are, because the amount of work that it takes to admit that you're sad, admit that you're unhappy, admit that you don't like the way that you're showing up and that you don't like who you are.
Yeah.
And then change it.
Yep.
Is much harder than going online and bitching about it and making a bunch of money off of it.
That is so true.
You know what I mean? Like that requires much less work. It's much easier to go online and do it and go viral about this and that and then respond and then have all your issues out there. I'm not that person. Like even coming on the show, I was like, oh my gosh, like people are going to know stuff about me and I'm like nervous. But yeah, like it took me years to figure out what I really wanted, who I really was, what I valued. And it took many tears.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I think especially women who, because whether or not it was like directly said to us, in some ways it was modeled. It's like if you kind of grow up with that idea, like, okay, I can do this for myself, and men are dessert. Like Cher, I don't know if you ever saw that video where she was like, oh, men are dessert. You know what I mean? Like they're nice to have, but I love dessert, but like they're not essential. Like I'm fulfilled by myself. Just so that whole kind of silly ideology. So, you know, a lot of us heard that of all races, whether we got it at home or we just saw it continually perpetuated. But no one wants to talk about the nights where you're kind of driving home and you left an event, maybe at church, or maybe it's a reunion, maybe friends, and like you're the single one there and everyone else is booed up and you're like putting on a smiley face, and then you get in the car and you're like crying, like, oh my God.
Sobbing.
No one wants to talk about that stuff. Or now you're at home, you wash off your makeup and then you're crying tears in the pillow. No one wants to talk about that. They'd rather, to your point, cry on the pillow and then go on TikTok and say, well, the reason I'm crying on the pillow, well, they won't say that, but the reason I'm upset is because blame black men. Black men aren't this, or men aren't that, or men are trash. And to your point, get that validation of other women who are also at night crying on pillows, but don't want to face their truth. And then, and then the cycle continues. But to your point, it's actually a lot harder to look in the mirror and be like, I actually don't like my life. I actually am doing bad by myself and I need a man. I don't want to do something like that's hard for so many people to own that, because now they have to be vulnerable. Now they have to look in the mirror and figure out, well, why don't I have what I want? Am I actually bringing something to the table? Am I actually wiping tears? Like you have to now unpack all these things. And to your point, if you don't want to do that, it's just easier to just sometimes, in this case, blame black men and then just maybe worship white men that you will never be able to actually marry anyways. That's the easier solution. So yes. Oh, it looks like you froze on me. Okay. She'll be back. I think you just hit me on my internet. Can you guys let me guys know if you hear me in this section? I think I hear myself, but it does look like my friend is frozen for a bit, which does happen. Okay, maybe her thing froze a bit. It says, Ash, Laura, beautiful statement. Women are made for men. We keep you ladies grounded. I've been married for 16 years and she thinks the same way. We are best of friends and love to chill at home, cooking together, watch movies. It's great. I love being married and she loves being married. And, we both met when we were single and then, saw each other in the engagement process and marriage. So like we kind of saw the evolution. And I think we could both, I know she's somewhere, but I'm sure we both could agree to the fact that our lives have definitely upgraded with our husbands. And we're not like old timers by any means. Like we're still growing and we're still evolving, but it's like, there's definitely been an initial upgrade. Absolutely. I think you're back.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine.
I'm like, I have all my internet bars. My computer just like went crazy. So let me see if I can connect this mic.
It's all good. Yeah, no, there's someone who was just sending you your flowers saying that you make a great statement. And I was alluding to the fact that I think we could both agree that you got married, just like we both got married, and our life in some way definitely upgraded. There's still things that we're still working towards, or still, supporting our husband through, praying through, because it's like you're always evolving. But I think it just is as far as a standard of living, like seriously, just not having to get up in the morning and deal with the politics of corporate and this boss who's saying this stuff and that person lied. Now you have to try to smile and like just all of that is a huge load off. Seriously.
Agreed. Yeah. So I mean, this, but I got laid off earlier this year and I called Gabe and I was like, oh my gosh, I just got laid off. And he was like, awesome. He's like, what do you want to, like, what are you going to do?
What do you now? Like, what do you want to do?
I'm like, I don't know. So he's just the best. Like, so I had and even when I was like going through, like in the last couple of months, even when I've been going back and forth, just trying to like process everything and like get through it. He's just been like really consistent and just really helpful to keep me on track and not wander, like I think as women, especially if you're like type A or like really like determined and focused and well directed, like you can think you're fine by yourself, but really I think when you add the right person who's also done the work and also spent some time getting to know themselves and what they want and their vision for the future, like that's one thing that I would say, and I would tell anyone watching who's like, maybe single or whatever, is if your husband has a vision or the person you're dating has a vision for their life and you don't like it, they're probably not for you. But if they do have a vision, if they don't have a vision at all, that's cause for concern because you don't really know what you're signing up for.
Absolutely.
And if they do, and it inspires you and it gets you excited and it makes you want to get involved, like that's a good sign, but it's like, it's like, you don't want to be, So anyways.
Yeah, no, I think some great points, and shout out to Gabe. We all love Gabe.
Oh,
your husband's amazing. So shout out
to him. He is awesome. I have some love. He is awesome.
Yeah. So no, I think those are awesome, good things. I'll say, Mr. Z, I don't know if you're here, feel free to call in. And I saw your take on the Divesters Swirlers just before I was watching this, so I'd be curious to get your feedback if you're here. If not, absolutely no worries. But no, Laura, you've been great. I think you've. I'm glad you were brave enough to talk about some of these things with me. I know it can be a bit shocking. Sometimes, people just don't want to come online and hash out this stuff too because they're afraid of the backlash. I get a lot. So this is fun. And I said it before, I was like, this was not a bash Black woman show or really a bash anyone show. It's just, let's try to hash through some of these ideals that are being promoted, especially as it pertains to the white community, and see what's going on. And I think based upon some of these things that we've clearly seen, a lot of it, in my opinion, is just, deflection. People not knowing themselves.
Yeah.
Now, Laura, I do want to be I know we've been on this a while, so I want to be mindful of your time. I have Mr. Z. He's a content creator of mine that I really enjoy. He did some stuff on swirling and divesting, so I wanted to weigh in. But if you have to go soon too, I totally get it.
I can spend a few more minutes on.
Okay.
Stories, yeah.
What's going on, Mr. Z? So what do you have on this whole topic? I saw your live before I got in about swirlers and divesting. It was funny. So
and excuse my background. I'm outside right now, and it's funny. She says she's in Miami. I'm in the next county up in Broward County, so I'm like down the street from her.
Oh,
yeah, I'm in South Florida.
I'm in North Miami, so we're probably.
Oh no, I was born and raised in North Miami. Well, I was raised in North Miami, not born. I'm like down the street from you, practically.
Oh my gosh, awesome!
Yeah, I'm like a little north of Aventura, so you're like around the corner.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah. Around the corner. I would be surprised if we haven't run into each other.
I'm almost certain. I'm almost certain. Right. So
awesome.
And thank you for having me up, Shay. And so what makes Divesters interesting is, the way I put it is, when we integrated, we actually didn't fix the anti-Black system. We just threw a bunch of Negroes into an anti-Black system. And so 50 plus years out, this is kind of what you have. And if Black women are believed and they are enrolled in college more than any other group of people, then of course, in those institutions, you're going to recreate some of the most pernicious anti-Black concepts. And so the way that sounds from, I would argue, not just Black women, but women of color, I would like to direct out to Mindy Kaling, who has said similar things, right? The Indian guys in her community didn't find her attractive, and it was a white guy was the first person to find her attractive and compliment her looks, and et cetera, et cetera. I just think it's women of color, us never actually investigating what colonialism and anti-Blackness and colorism and featureism and racism and, et cetera, et cetera. How did women of color register that, right? So we have had scholarship for decades, if not centuries, about how men of color have registered being the outside, the group of outside males, right? The group of males that are not part of the white power structure. And I don't think we've done a really good job at speaking about how women of color have thought about and felt about being the group of outside women, right? And how then do they attempt to achieve that, especially in this air quotes more open society? How do you enter the house of power and influence and wealth, right? And I think what you see with the Divesters and the Swirlers is a pining for that, and using their education, using some of their influence through second and third wave feminism to essentially regurgitate what a lot of white lefties and white conservatives think, and then pretty much tell you what you want to hear. Like, oh wait, the white lefties want to hear about how Black men are transphobes and homophobes. Okay, we'll do that. And the white conservatives want to hear about respectability politics. Okay, we'll do that, right? And then you fast forward 50 some odd years, 60 some odd years, and you have Swirlers and Divesters. I don't think it's not difficult to understand for me, but I would like to know what y'all think about that.
Well, I think it's just like the power of unchecked false ideology, because there aren't really chains or holding people back anymore, like physical ones. So if you can chain the mind, you don't have to fix anything and you don't have to do anything different.
Yeah, it's recreating the power structure, but now in someone's mind. It's like that video. I don't know if you guys ever saw, where they chain the horse up to a chair, and then they let the chain go, and then the horse just continues in that same circle.
Yeah, there's a study that's done that I've used a lot in like my normal work life around, just like building culture, because a lot of my background is in organizational culture and change. And one of this, it's a study of like a group of monkeys, and they're in a cage, and they put bananas at the top of this cage. And so but every time they go to the top of the thing to get a banana, they get electrocuted. So it's like not a humane one, but it's like they get zapped. Like they don't get electrocuted, but they get zapped.
Wow.
And so over time, they stop reaching for the bananas. And then what happens is they actually start removing those original monkeys and replacing them with new ones. And so when the new monkeys go in to grab the banana, the other monkeys in the cage will actually pull the monkey down away from the bananas. And so, and then they'll slowly replace the cage so that no monkey has ever actually been electrocuted that's in the cage, but no one will go for the bananas.
And that to me, you know, and I don't want to discount some of what some of these divestors are speaking about. Have I heard comments in the Black community about skin tone? Yes. Have I seen and heard things? So it's not like to say that all of what they're saying is imaginary and whatnot, but what it is to say is that much of this is overblown, much of this is exaggerated, and much of it is just excuses for you to do what you wanted to do or what you felt like you wanted to be or wanted to do in the first place, right? So like I said, I don't think we've done a really good job at socializing women for what, you know, me and BGS have had this conversation, like, okay, you want an egalitarian system, fine. Do you know what actually comes with that? Because there's some positives from patriarchy that you're not going to have anymore, right? And I don't think women of color and women in general really have factored that in, but women of color are so loud about it, right? So like, you want the egalitarianism for everything in society, but then when it's time to date and marry, then you're wondering why you're not getting a certain type of traditional man. Well, you X that. All of that comes together. You can't have it halfway, where it's like, I want the position, I want the middle management job, I want the $50,000+ a year job, I want the Benz C class, E class, and I want to beat men out for those positions, but at the same time, I want to marry up. What? Right? On a one-to-one level possible, but once you start talking about societally, then when we have the 60-40 split in college, there's a fallout with that when it's time to get married, but you're still trying to date and marry up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know if you heard about that, where it's like, it's what, 60% of women in college, 40% men? Is that
yes, and that's enrolling, and graduation, it jumps up to 65-35.
Yep. So these women are getting women are continuing to get into upward, mobilely moving positions where they're getting more money. And I mean, you alluded to that, right, earlier. And then, you know, this is a competitive system where it's like, to a certain, you kind of have to have the haves and the have-nots for the system to continue in capitalism. So it's like you have that, but you still have this hypergamous nature that women contend with, where they want to be with the best, most qualified men as far as resources, as far as culture, as far as status, social status, that still exists. And so it's like you've created a culture where now women can have access to these things on their own, but they've tried to, but they haven't been able to essentially rewire the way women want to date and marry. There's a reason you go online and you don't. There isn't a broke positivity movement. There's not an equivalent to that where
I love that shit.
Status are still being celebrated because of their intrinsic value, or short men are still being celebrated because of their intrinsic value, or bald men. That doesn't happen. We see women having body positivity and take me as I am, but men still have to pay the bills, and men still have to be 6'6", 6 packs, 6 figures, 6 inches, 6 fill in the blank, right? And that goes back to the way that we've been socialized to a certain way that kind of worked well under the system of whatever, if you want to call it, white patriarchy in the West. That's what it was. But you're socialized a certain way, as Mr. Z alluded to. There are certain benefits of that you lose when you try to go into this more egalitarian society.
And how white people come in for Black women. And I'm so glad, Laura, that you're here, because me and Shay have spoken about this. Like, y'all don't have white friends. Yeah, like, I had a white best friend for years, and it's like, I know these women don't have white friends. They don't have white associates. They don't go to happy hour with white people. They don't I know they don't, because there's no way you would be coming out your mouth like, white people are people. Like, they have drunk uncles. They have, they got an uncle that's still living on their parents' couch at 45 years old. Like, all the things that Black people have.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm interrupting you, so you don't have to say sorry, but I'm just saying we have all sorts of issues, all sorts of them, and they show up different, but they're still there.
And I think maybe the blinder is what you're saying, that's showing up different, and maybe the people we're speaking about don't know how to see that. They don't have the lens at which to see the different ways that white pathology shows up, or white problems show up, or Asian problems, or Latino problems, right? So and because you hyper focus on a certain type of negativity from black men, you don't actually see where white men might have a propensity to do something else negative that might harm you, or Latino men might have a propensity to do something else that might harm you, because you're so hyper focused on what black men aren't, right? And I think that's one of the major issues we have is like you heard like this kind of mythical talk, like white men do this and they do that and they're magic queer, and it's like, who are you talking about? Like, these are like the elite men, and they're like and what we find out from Bill Gates' divorce, like they have contracts in their marriage to be like, yeah, once a year for a week, I go sleep with my college sweetheart, and you just got to eat that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was part of his marriage contract. Once a year, I'm gonna pay for this house. Her husband know, and you know, and once a year for a week, I'm gonna go sleep with my college sweetheart. Yeah, and Melinda Gates signed that contract. Yes, she did.
Of course.
You want to be married to a billionaire, you got to, hey.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And the thing about it too, it's like even that, because from my understanding, they both already came from somewhat of an elite family. So it's like, you still like, even as a white person, you're not just going up into Bill Gates' community or his circle and being able to integrate with him. You know what I mean? It's like, even when the white people, again, there's class. So you can't even just have access to that kind of lifestyle just because you're white. There is class, and there is the circles and all of that happens even within the white community. So it's like, again, going back to that, you call it the myth of white womanhood, right, Mr. Z, where it's like they kind of have this idea of living.
Yeah, I stole that from BGS. I gotta give him his props. Yeah,
he stole the myth of white womanhood, where it's this idea of like all these white women are going up and living this upper class lifestyle that most white women don't even live.
They live Roseanne's life.
Roseanne, right? That's
you want me to say it, Shay? So like the notion in the black community is that most white women, outside of the most like meth head white women, are living Real Housewives of Orange County. And what I like to tell black women, particularly black men too, because sometimes they perpetuate the same BS, is no, your average white woman is living Roseanne's life. They're not living Real Housewives of Orange County. I don't know where we get this from. Right? Like your average white person doesn't have like, you know, $100,000 liquid in the bank. You know, their uncle isn't some super well-connected, like multi-billionaire or millionaire. Like, we don't even understand money in America, I would argue. And then I think black people less so, you know, so.
Yeah. I'm a very average person, to be honest, like very average. I would say to your last point, like, rich, wealthy people do not waste their time on this type of conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they're talking about how to rule the world, like Pinky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what the really crazy ones.
Yeah.
But you know, like this goes back to kind of my point that I was making earlier, and I'm reading this book called Think and Grow Rich. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
I've heard of it. Mm-hmm.
My husband's making me read it, which is really good. He's the money man. He's a financial planner. So, but he's super passionate about just like the level of like beliefs, how your beliefs impact your thoughts, impact your feelings, impact your actions. And if you don't look at it from that chain, you're always going to be somewhat disillusioned and depending on what your beliefs are, right? And you're going into these with bad beliefs or wrong beliefs or taught to you beliefs. And if you're not able, and what they don't teach in school at all, ever. And so if you didn't learn this just by getting knocked up by life, but like to critically think about what you're saying and to research what you're saying. And is this true? Is this not true? Like you're always going to get caught up in the next narrative.
Yeah. You know, so, and you said your husband's a financial planner. So education, I think this is a product of the failed promise of education. So, and I heard you ladies kind of alluding to it, which is like the notion that you're going to go to college and like you're going to get these kick-ass jobs and they're going to be paying you a fortune and then you're going to meet your even wealthier husband and then he's going to sell you out in the sunset and you're going to live happily ever after, you know, jet setting the world just from a 4-year college degree. And I think like as millennials, that was kind of like the subtle promise of, of a college education.
Totally.
And like as a millennial, when you run into the wall of like, actually, there's the student loan debt, and there's these like just $1 more than minimum wage pays, like, right, and working you to death, right? And for you to not make that, excuse my background, but for you to not earn, for you to earn more than that, excuse me, the amount of hours you have to put in, especially at an early age, I just don't think that was advertised accurately to millennials in general, younger Xers, and then the women in particular. So what you have, I think, is a backlash to that hustle culture that was sold to us, you know, about a decade or so ago.
Yeah.
And this soft life and this marrying white, because marrying white in these people's minds is marrying money and it's marrying status. I think a lot of that is like, okay, well, I did the college thing. I have this, what, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in student loan debt. I can barely afford my apartment. I can barely afford this econo box car. I need a man to come save me. Okay, let me look out. Who are the air quotes men of this society? And the men of this society are white men, right? So this is, and then we over romanticize the Henry Cavills, the Chris Evans, the Hemsworth with the Chris Hemsworth, and like that becomes like the mythical, magical white dude that black women in these divester spaces throw in white men's faces to be like, you know, Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, and what are you guys doing to be like these guys, right? And it's like, well, do you really want us to go around the world, you know, grape and pillage the world, and then in, you know, I guess 4 centuries, about 20% of black women will be where white women are now? Like, is that what you're asking us to do? Because like, that's how we got here, you know? And it like I said, I just think they're trying to gaslight us with mythical, magical white dudes. That, I mean, there are white men that have the money and the status like that, but white women are fighting over them, and so are Asians. And yeah, I said it. Oh, yeah, I said it. And so, I mean, have fun. Shay has heard me say this before. Like, if you want the top 20% guy, particularly white man, get your boxing gloves and boxing shoes ready, because it's a war up there. It's a war for those guys.
That's absolutely right. And also go to the gym.
Right, because you're gonna need it.
And be a size 2. Right, and that's one thing that not American woman.
And what I will add to that is keep your mouth closed.
Laura, I'm so happy you said that. They think those guys want to hear their opinion.
They don't. They don't.
They don't care.
Honestly, they don't. Maybe some, but it's like a very, very few. Yep. You know, like the guy that I dated, and he would, I don't think he would ever say this, right? But like, he didn't really want my opinion, which is why it didn't work. You know what I mean? And he's I would say for sure the guy that I dated and moved to the Bay Area for is a top 20% for sure. No question. Mm-hmm. Like already successful. He's 6'6", very tall, you know, like
you see
all of the factors, right? But he didn't really want my opinion. He didn't really want it.
He just wanted to be there.
And I am opinionated. So like, you know, and Gabe is always asking for my opinion. He's always like, what do you think? What do you think? But he likes the way I think. So he wants, like, it's a different relationship entirely. And, you know, that was one thing where I was just like, I don't actually know that I could, I mean, maybe I could be with the white guy. I have too many opinions.
Look,
I literally thought that at one point. You know, I'm sure that, you know, people will go after, but like the truth is, like, that's how it works. Like you kind of need there's a little bit more of like a docile personality that is ready to look good on every occasion, be respectful in every occasion, say very few things, be very supportive of everything that comes out, you know, and it's like, I'm not supportive of everything that comes out of Gabe's mouth, but I definitely have my own take on things.
Look, Laura, these people think they're going to meet them a white guy with $1 million liquid, owns his own business. Yeah.
Which, by the way, is not a lot of money.
Yeah.
$1 million
in the grand scheme of things, yeah.
Not anymore. It's not a lot of money. And so that's where it's like, I'm gonna just do a quick plug because I can't help it, and my
Go.
husband's a
Do it.
fan.
Do your plug. Do it.
But my husband created so he was a financial advisor for he's been in the personal finance industry for the last 10 years. He worked with a bunch of people you have to have a minimum of 1 million in assets to have your money managed at the firm that he used to work at. So a minimum, which means you have to have well more than 1 million. You have to reach a certain requirement. And so he was like, how do we get people to 1 million? Because 1 million is not a lot anymore. It used to be back in the day, but it's like the new, like
100,000.
Yeah, like it's not a lot of money, and it won't last as long as you think it will. So $1 million is not even enough money, really. And so he basically took all of that and he put it into a financial planning course, and he created a 1-page financial plan that you can go find right now on steadyworth.com.
Let's do it.
It's really simple to use. It's like helps you think about how you manage your money and how you kind of do all that stuff. And I will say, like, the number of people who are avoidant, don't want to deal with it, will think that they'll just accumulate wealth by accident is a lot of people. And it's like, at the end of the day, you really kind of need to take charge and get after it and get the learning yourself, which I think could apply to this whole conversation. Is like, if you don't do the work, if you don't examine what you think and what you believe and get rid of the stuff that doesn't serve you, then you're going to be stuck for a long time and be unhappy for a very long time.
Laura, if you don't mind, let me joke with Shay real quick, because Shay said something that really, it killed me the first time I heard her say this. And these people think that the mythical, magical, rich white dude is going to show up in the Shake Shack, right? What did you say, Shay? Joe's Crab Shack? Joe's Crab Shack. And he's going to be a billionaire, and he's just going to whisk her away like, oh my God, you're so attractive. Marry me right now. Right, on some Anna Nicole Smith type thing, like, marry me right now. Like,
well, there's a reason why that hasn't happened yet.
Right, and like and I'm saying that because of something you said, which is like thinking you're going to come up on wealth by accident or by happenstance, right? And I, to tell you the truth, I think a lot of this you could tie into some of that manifest talk that was going on a year ago or a couple years ago. You could tie all of that to this, because it really is a cry for help. Like I was saying before, millennials, we thought we were going to come out here and slay, and then you came out here and saw what the real world was, and like a lot of people are copping pleas now and backtracking and moonwalking because the struggle is real. And like, it is something, there's something to be said, and it's a fact, like the fastest way to get into wealth is to marry into it. And so I think what you have is women of color saying, okay, well, where's the wealth in this society? White people. Well, I'm not, same-sex loving, so that's white men. Well, I got to get at it. And so, like, it's both using white men as a gaslighting tool against black men to have black men work themselves to death just so that you could afford a Birkin bag. And it's also like a scream for help. Like, I don't have it together financially. I'm treading water, and like, I need a man with some real ends to come and save me, right? So, and I've seen it. So Laura, I used to work in Boca, which is about 45 minutes north of us. I used to work at a big foreclosure mill. This was years ago. And there was this one, and I'm not gonna lie, good looking white guy. He was married, attorney, lead attorney. His wife was also an attorney that worked at the law office. This guy was the most eligible bachelor married man ever. He was piping everything, okay? Thick black woman, slim white woman, Latina whose husband worked at the job. And it was all because they were all hoping to be that chick, whether it was his side chick or whether it was that he would eventually divorce his wife and be with one of them. And they eventually did get divorced because she caught him cheating. But none of those women ever,
well, that's the risk.
Yeah.
That's the risk. You got to be open to that as a possibility if you're dating someone who has that many options.
And that's what ended up happening to the wife, right? So you got to get married to him, and it was a white woman. You got to get married to him. Y'all had 2 kids together, but he was doing some strange stuff in the office with the door locked, and and it cost you your marriage, and
Yeah.
That goes with, like you said, the options.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to values too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're marrying because you think someone is going to provide you something, but they're not actually, and you haven't vetted them for values and compatibility and all this other stuff, like it's bound to fail because you're in it for the wrong reasons. So I don't know why they got married, but it's like it's a little bit of delusion, I would say, but you have to be willing to accept the consequences. Like I've been sued before because I rear-ended someone and he thought I had money because I was white. So you know what I mean? So it's like it goes both ways. Like I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying like there are things that come with the assumption that you make about people. Because I was like, I mean, luckily we had good insurance, but I wouldn't have been able. I mean, he sued me like 2 years later. I had to like testify, and I'm like, I don't even remember the accident. Like, what happened that day? And I'm getting grilled about every detail. Like, was your window down? I'm like, I don't know. Like what?
I don't think so. What ends up happening, and I think this is okay. So let me get this out because this is important. Media has a great. We have to blame media for this because what ends up happening is that we want to portray a certain lifestyle on television because that's how you sell products. And so what ends up happening is that people of color, Black people in particular, get to see top 20% white families on television all day, every day. And they forget that there's a whole other bottom 80%, right, that don't make that money, don't have those connections. Maybe they have one uncle that's worth $1 million, but that's like, somebody you only see on Thanksgiving dinner or something like that. And so what ends up happening is what happened to you, which is like these people get into situations, white people, and they just see a big money bag, not realizing that the median household income is $67,000, $70,000 a year. That includes white people, right? And so we can tie that all into the conversation. Exactly, like and that to me is the fault of media. But what ends up happening is because we're integrated, but yet we're still segregated in this society. So because most Black people aren't interacting with white folks, they don't realize that your average white person, they're okay, and maybe they have a couple of dollars more than you, but they don't have what you think they have though. And I think that's how you end up in your situation, Laura, where it's like, ooh, 2 years later, am I really gonna let that white woman go? Let me sue her, right? Like
he's sued multiple people, by the way, multiple.
Yeah.
So this was not his first rodeo, but
Yeah.
and luckily it wasn't really that big of a deal. But
Mhm.
I mean, I think if you can't take information and analyze it and take what you want and leave what you don't want, you're in a world of trouble because you can very be easily swayed by the ways of this world. And unfortunately, we're very easily caught up in self-deception.
Yeah.
All of us are.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
you have to have an active practice to be like, am I deceiving myself by this or that thought? And and I need to get rid of it. And the only real excuse we have is ourselves.
Well, I think that
Outside
takes
of
the
that,
work.
yeah,
That takes the work that you were saying earlier, where it's like, and so I've said this too. Me and my younger sister actually have this conversation because we know a couple of people that have done exactly what you ladies were saying, like go home and cry themselves to sleep at night, right? Yeah. Like women, and like, and I say that not to make fun of, but like I know that's a thing, and I think these people, like you were saying, Laura, like they don't want to do the work. They would rather come online and rail against Black men than be honest with the fact that they're crying themselves to sleep at night. And maybe they know that there's something that they can work on with themselves, but they're hoping against all hope that a man will not only accept that flaw about them, but love that flaw about them. And why can't, and this is where we go into like the beauty standards, right? Like the pretty chick gets to be an a-hole, and yet men still chase after her. Why do I have to work on myself? Why do I have to work on this flaw? And so that I can not even get the type of guy that the pretty girl gets. And you can see that type of emotion or that type of thought and feeling coming from people in general, because I think there's some men that feel this way about other men, but definitely women, right? And so I don't want to work on myself. I just want what she has. Why can't I have what she has?
But she's
Right?
unhappy too. She's
Yeah.
unhappy too.
Yeah.
Because she's like, none of these people really love me. They just like the way I look.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like pick your demon. Someone has one. And just because it doesn't look like yours doesn't mean their life isn't hard. And they don't cry themselves to sleep. So it's like just think about it. Like we all have something that we cry ourselves to sleep over.
Yeah.
I know there was someone who had a question for me down there, something about being treated bad by the top 20 to love the bottom 80.
It was, Laura, would you say all women have to go through that phase of being treated like trash by the top 20% to appreciate the majority of the 80% of men?
I don't feel like I can answer this question because I still feel like I got a top 20%er personally. So
you're like, okay.
Like I feel like I do feel like there is a learning curve for women, you know, but it comes with learning about yourself. And so sometimes in order to really learn about yourself, you have to date the bad ones. Because a lot of the bad ones I dated brought something out of me that I was either unaware of, unaware that I needed to work on, or it highlighted something in me that was still broken from my experience growing up. So like I dated a lot of men that had similarities to, you know, ways in which I related to men growing up. And it was only by dating those people did I realize that that was still holding me back, and a chain that was, or a belief that I had. All men have to be like X in order for me to be in a relationship with someone. And then I realized that I really don't want to date emotionally unavailable men. So I just stopped. And then I met my husband, and it's been the best thing ever. So,
I mean, it's funny that you had said earlier where you were like, you were talking about the mythical white guy that Mr. Z alludes to, and you're like, that
the
guy
mythical magical white man
doesn't want to hear you speak, and he doesn't want to hear your perspective, to be quite frank. And also, by the way, you might have to share him with a girlfriend or two, or
like that's like. And here's what I'm not saying, like, not that I even talk to this person anymore, but I think he would be loyal and like a loving and a great dad. We just weren't compatible. Like we just didn't have the same value set. Like I wasn't going to show up to a meeting and have it all together. Like I'm not like that. Like I'm kind of like a raw, authentic person. Like I really don't know how to act and be different. So, and when I am, I'm like exhausted afterwards, like totally exhausted. So, you know, it's like everyone has their own preferences, but if you're expecting to get into a relationship and not change at all, or not submit, or not compromise, you're fooling yourself, and you'll be divorced and or lonely for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, and I, you know, to back up what Laura's saying, I think this is much of the problem that we have when we are not really taught societal mechanisms and what makes things happen, who's together. Also, adding to that, the money part. What ends up happening is people have these Disney-esque ideas of how a relationship will go, right? So it's like, well, I want the guy with the money and the status that's a great dad and loving and available, and that's a doctor, but then he still has time, and yet we're jet setting around the world, but yet I have the corner office, but yet I'm a stay-at-home mom, and like,
all of that.
What?
Yes.
Right, and it really is. It's not really understanding, and I'm, you know, shout out to all my U.S. military men. It's not understanding the cost of freedom. It's not understanding the cost of what you want. You want to be free, but yet you want stability at the same time. You want a man to let you be free while providing you the stability to do what you want to do, how you want to do it, with no say so. What?
Well, this will be my last point, and then I am going to hop off so that I can hang out with my hubs and have some dinner. But this goes back to our main point, is that people don't know themselves and don't know what they want. So they want 10 different things, and none of those things can work all at one time. And so it's like you have to kind of decide, like, am I the type of person who wants to stay at home or work in an office?
Mm-hmm.
Which person am I? Because there is a man who has a preference.
Yeah.
It's okay if he has a preference.
And he can have a preference of you staying home. And if that is actually your inclination, then maybe that person is right for you. And even if they don't, there could be some compromise around that. Like maybe he'll change his mind a little bit and you can work part-time, but it's going to be, you know, part-time, and you're not really going to be able to climb the corporate ladder because you're not going to be able to go to every meeting and be at every happy hour and do all that stuff. So if you don't know what you want and you haven't spent any time getting to know yourself, you are going to be carried by every single wind and whim that the media puts through you, that your family tells you, that your friends tell you. And so it's like, you got to decide at the end of the day.
Wait, Laura, so are you telling me that if I get the white man, he won't just allow me to have the option to do whatever I want? Like, that's the whole point of being with the white man, so that I can be a stay-at-home mom while working at the office 40 hours a week? Like, really, tying this back to the Swirler and Divester talk, and I know you have to go. That's what I think it is. The white man is a placeholder for the type of person that will allow me to live out my dream. And I think that's something that we have to contend with. Like I said, it's how have women of color internalized the past 500 years of world history, right? Both in America, but what you find is a lot of this mythical, magical white man talk is in Asia, right? It's in South Asia, it's in Africa, it's in Latin America. It's crazy how, as a matter of fact, I think we do a better job in America talking about it, because in these other places, woo, right? So I think that's what the white man has acted like. I don't want to say it like this, but let's be honest, as a god in many people's imagination. Yeah. And I think that's where you get the divester swirler kind of talk from. Like I said, it is a gaslighting tool, but at the same time, it is I don't know these people, but at least on television, they look like they got it all together. So, and thank you for talking to me, Laura.
Of course. Yeah, we're neighbors.
Right? So I'll drop off. Y'all have a great rest of your night, ladies. And thank you for having me up, Shay. And
meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, you take care. All right, Laura, this was great. Thank you so much for hanging out. I know went a lot longer than I anticipated, but it was fun. It's always fun to chat. And thank you for being a trooper.
Of course, thank you.
You guys go support Laura and Gabe. Go check out I posted about it earlier.
Yeah, so steadyworth.com, we offer comprehensive financial planning education. So for the individual, so for people like you, or if you're a business owner, we offer financial planning education courses and workshops. What you'll see online is our few different course options. Basically, that'll help you fill out a one-page financial plan. It'll help you fill out an action plan. So once you've kind of gone through, got the basics of financial planning, filled out your plan, it'll kind of give you next steps on how you can improve your financial situation. You can book a call with Gabe online. He does free 15-minute calls if you have a financial planning question. Yeah. You can follow us on Instagram at SteadyWorth, Facebook at SteadyWorth, and TikTok at SteadyWorth, except for we're not as primed on TikTok. So you could go there, but it's still a work in progress. So we just genuinely believe that there's more financial planning. There's an education that's lacking, and that people haven't really gotten the education that they need to really manage their finances well. And so that's the gap we've been trying to fill. And Gabe is amazing, and I mostly help with back end stuff. So
awesome. Yeah. All right, guys. So go some love. If you like Laura and Gabe, go visit SteadyWorth. Like, share, subscribe to their content. You can get YouTube too, is where you guys post your
weekly. Oh yeah, YouTube at SteadyWorth too. Yeah.
Yes, go check out their YouTube. Y'all know the drill.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Okay, you have a good night.
All right, see ya.
Okay. All right, guys. So this was a long one, but I do think it was much needed. And those of you guys who got on here a little late, no worries. You can go back and catch the replay. But we covered off a lot. So at the end of the day, as I mentioned, I think we kind of set the tone earlier in the conversation that really it's all about self-awareness. I know sometimes we can use these terms, swirler, divesting, zaddy, we can use all these terms but I think at the end of the day, a lot of that stuff is just there to kind of overlook what's really going on, which in my opinion is just a lot of women out there who don't fully know who they are. Maybe they have some unhealed trauma, some unhealed issues, and quite frankly, it can be easier to project or to hold on to fantasies versus face your own truth. So I hope, if nothing else, this encouraged some of you guys, it entertained you, you learned something, and also just put things in perspective. A lot of this stuff, anytime you can go and generalize a whole group of people and say all of them are this or all of them is that, you're probably not having an honest conversation, and they're probably deflecting from something more, I'm gonna say insidious, but what's really truly going on. So I encourage all of you ladies, wherever you are at, if you want to find a good husband, if you want to be a good wife, be that. Do the self-reflection she talked about. If you actually are that person who is coming home at night or driving in your car crying, you go out and you go on TikTok, you go in front of people and you try to put on the strong, independent, boss babe, or you try to put on a happy face, but you're really going at home at night crying on your pillow. You're crying when people aren't there. You're depressed. You have those moments of feeling really desperate or really isolated. Face that. There's nothing wrong with facing that truth, because if you do, that will actually prepare you to get what you actually want. But if you start holding on to these different fantasies and start projecting and saying it's his fault, their fault, everybody else's fault, and we go for the mythical white dude, then you're not really addressing what is actually impacting you from living the life that you want. And that's what I don't want for anyone. So hopefully this inspired you, helped you. As always, like, share, subscribe. If you like what we do here, one of the best ways you can ensure that this kind of content continues to be supported and continues to get the kind of the awareness that you like is by supporting us. Support your favorite content creators, like I said, whether it is through a share, getting the message out there, or through donations, right? This is a completely 100% donation ran platform. So whatever I get from you guys is what I get. So yes, be sure to do that and stay tuned. I do have another live tomorrow. We're going to be talking about born again versions versus abstinence, which is better. So that should be a fun topic tomorrow. Tune in for that. I'll be having a special guest security boss. And I'm trying to think if I got everything else. I think that's all I have for today. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll talk later. Okay, guys? Peace out.